Hello, very good morning to you and welcome to your most authoritative news analysis show, Newsfile. My name is Samson Ladi Anyenini. Join us on the show this morning between now and 12 o'clock when we take a critical look at the issues that were most topical in the course of the week. Now, the biggest case, bill to go fast track, getting slow. The momentum getting low as the NPP loses first round battle. But this NDC Joinder victory, much ado about nothing. The NPP MP's boycott of ministerial nominees vetting, just to whip up momentum or to embarrass John Mahama locally and abroad. Victor Owusu's nephew taxed the boycotts illogical, nonsensical, and self-promotional gimmicks. Well, his name is Tarzan, so I am sure he is not regretted. After all the attacks, the GBA stands up, but Jacob Echebilamte tells them, no, thank you. Alan denies being behind the 2016 campaign posters. I'm talking about Alan Cash, Alan Kojo Kyerematen. So who did it? And why? Is he not interested in the job anymore? Because after all, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has finished his term. It's only in the ruling NDC that it takes a national executive meeting to tell who is or is not a member of that party, including its own suspended deputy national organizer, Kofi Adams. Will Jerry Rawlings put him up, deputy general secretary? Will Jerry Rawlings put him up for elections in Boer as an independent candidate? We will also look or examine the president's moves in forming his cabinet so far. Keep your dials here on Joy 99.7 FM and keep watching your Joy News channel on Multi TV. I am Samson Ladi Anyenini. I'll be right back with my guests, including Dr. Charles Reku Broby.
As you're aware, the petition was filed and the NDC wanted to be joined as a party. That application was heard on the 16th and the court adjourned the matter to today for a ruling. By a majority of 6 to 3, the court has granted their application to be joined to the petition. The court has since ordered that we amend our petition to include the NDC as third respondents, and then after that, within 7 days after we have served them with the amended petition, they will file their appearance and also their answer.
The NDC into this action as a respondent, which means that they are now party to this action, but by way of legal processes, they've been given 7 days within which to file their papers, in terms of indicating that yes, they are ready to join. Yes, this is our document. They have to file their answer to what the petitioners have filed, answering point by point all the allegations which have been made by the petitioners. And also, of course, in that document, they will indicate witnesses, if any, that they want to call.
In plain language, we are not boycotting the vetting process. We are just politely declining to participate in the process. Okay? And we are saying that if anything that will evaporate when President Mahama is kicked off by the Supreme Court, we will not participate in it. We humbly decline to participate. But anything that will stay, okay, Any decision of the president that will stay beyond his tenure of office, we will participate in such deliberations. So Ghanaians should know that we are taking their interests at heart. Any decision that will concern directly the people of Ghana, we will participate in such deliberations. And you will see us in full force in Parliament when such issues come. We have always been the people who have tried as much as possible to improve our democracy. We will not do anything that will want to take the shine off our democracy. There are countries where people have disputed elections, and instead of doing what we have done, have resorted to using cutlasses and cudgels. We can talk of our neighbors, all our neighbors. Then in Africa, even in other areas outside Africa, but it's using the constitution and the courts to fight its case. So you should be praising that party. You should be praising people like this. You should be thanking them that instead of mobilizing their supporters to go onto the street, that party is using the constitutionally mandated forum. That's the courts. So good in writing like that and so vociferous in talking to the media. Where was he in 2012 elections when we wanted people to talk for the party, when we wanted people to fight for the party? I think that we should ignore him. He's an unnecessary element within the party. We don't want to bother ourselves about him. The party has moved beyond him. He should forget about this funding thing and go and try and see what he can do to help build the party from the grassroots. There is nothing like founding father within the party, MPP any longer. Everybody, whether you are a founding father, you are an MP, you go to the grassroots and work. He should tell us where he went to work in 2012, and then we can speak from there. Does he have the feeling of these people? Has he tested what they are saying? Does he imagine what they are going through by this time? Please, I beg to differ. I will not want to waste my time on such people.
Of course, I picked forms, filled them as a party member, submitted them, went through vetting. The vetting committee was satisfied with my presentation, and except that they told me there that a national officer told them not to vet me, and that they were under the instruction of the general secretary not to vet me on that day. But unfortunately for him, it wasn't possible. Wisdom prevailed, and they took me through the vetting and realized that no, they've been misled. So, but they didn't have the power to turn that decision that the general secretary told them was a decision of National Executive Committee. So they referred the matter to them to look into. I'm told yesterday the Functional Executive Committee met, and he, the general secretary, the national chairman, and two others insisted against the majority of those who spoke in favor of me that they were not going to allow me to contest, and that is all. I'm a member of the party, and the actions of these 2, 3, 4 individuals will not stop me from being a member of the party. The president of the country and the leader of the NDC have initiated a process, and that process we will all respect. I would consult broadly with party followers, sympathizers, lovers, and supporters, and we'll come to a decision as to the way forward.
NPP supporters thronged the streets of Cape Coast to deface controversial posters splashed at vantage points in the metropolis. The posters bearing the images of the 2008 and 2012 failed NPP presidential aspirant have the inscription 2016 Kyerematen, New Hope. Regional and constituency executives of the NPP say they believe it is a deliberate ploy by the NDC to cause disunity and distract the NPP from its election petition pending at the Supreme Court. An NPP executive and the regional campaign manager for Kyerematen's 2010 campaign, Samuel Odro, tells Joy News party supporters have been alerted to keep an eagle eye on perpetrators.
We are condemning this act, and as we have seen now, we are removing all the posters in town. We are marching through town, removing all the posters of Honorable Kyerematen. We believe that this is a fake poster, and if you can see this clearly, you will see that this is the same picture that was used in the 2010 presidential primaries of the NPP. So they've just gone to scan it, and they are using it for this poster. You see, this poster is not genuine, it's fake, and we are condemning whoever posted this process in Cape Coast. We've heard that this thing is going on all over the country, but from Cape Coast, the directive we are given, and this should go nationwide, is that if you see anybody pasting posters of Honorable Kyerematen, you have to cause the person's arrest. You have to arrest the person. If you have citizens arrest the person and send him to the police station. Apart from that, if you don't see the person, anywhere you see Honorable Kyerematen's posters, remove them. Destroy everything.
Thank you very much for staying tuned to Joy 99.7 FM on radio and in Kumasi on Love FM. And you're also listening to us via over a dozen of affiliate stations across the country and as well on myjoyonline.com. You're watching us on your Joy News channel on Multi TV and also at Multi TV World/streams. Thank you very much for being part of this show. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. And this morning, as I've already told you, we are looking at the biggest case yet in the political history of the country. It was built to go fast track, but getting slow. The momentum is also getting low as the NPP loses what is called first round of the battle. But I am asking, this NDC Joinder victory, much ado about nothing? And the NPP MP's boycott of the president's nominees being vetted in Parliament, is it just to whip up the momentum or to embarrass the president locally and abroad? Victor Owusu's nephew taxed the boycotts illogical, nonsensical, self-promotional gimmicks. Well, he's got a lot of bashing for those harsh descriptions. But, like I said, his name, as you know, nickname is Tarzan. And I'm sure that he has not regretted it at all, even after the attacks. The Ghana Bar Association, you may have heard the news making the rounds now. They have been silent for a long time and appear to have found their voice now. They have sought to intervene and ask the NPP MPs to rescind their decision. Jacob Lamte, national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, has written a letter to the GBA addressed to its president, Nene Amegache, saying, "No thanks, sir. We do not want your intervention." Or it is the case that you don't clearly understand why we are doing what we are doing. We'll look at those issues, and you remember Alan Cash, the man with cash. Well, 2 times he failed to lead the NPP to the elections. After Nana Addo's term is over, he is getting free campaigns, getting free advertisement to take up the job. He's come out to deny any knowledge of that campaign. What is he afraid of? We'll look at that issue also. And as you may have heard me say, I think it is only in the ruling National Democratic Congress that it takes a national executive meeting to tell who is or who is not a member of that party, including its own suspended deputy national secretary. I'm asking if Jerry Rawlings, the man Kofi Adams speaks for, will put him up as an independent candidate for the Boem by-elections. Maybe you have heard also that it may take just 1 or 2 campaigns led by Jerry Rawlings in that constituency for Kofi Adams to win it as an independent candidate. We'll make time and examine the president's moves in constituting his cabinet. There is talk about job for the boys. There is talk about he stamping his authority as being independent in what he's doing. And there is criticism suggesting that he's afraid he would suffer some backlash if he doesn't include some people. And so he's under pressure to put in some people. Regional balance is also a bigger thing that has come up in this the president's nomination so far. Well, my guests are seated in the studio already, and I'll introduce to you Dr. Charles Reku Brobe. He is a founding member of the NPP, Victor Owusu's nephew. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. To my left, I have Chum Berima. He's an engineer and also a lawyer. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Nana Akumia is a former MP and 2012 campaign coordinator, campaign communications director for the NPP. Good morning and thanks for joining us, Nana.
Morning, Samson.
All right, now you can join us. You know, your thoughts, your comments, your views, and your questions are welcome. 1422 1670. And also, you can post your comments on our Facebook wall. Just go search for Joy 997 FM. You can also send me an email at newsfile@myjoyonline.com. The NDC's Kojo Edu Asare, former MP for Adenta, will also join us shortly. He's late. I'll start with you, Nana. Now we know the Joinder application that the petitioners oppose so vehemently. We know that you have lost that battle. You have accepted it in good faith, and so you are going to start the real battle. Now there is also motions or applications for further and better particulars by the EC, by the John Mahama himself also. And the suggestion is that you think that all of these are simply to delay a speedy trial. When you sit back, do you feel that we'll get to the end of this matter anytime soon, at least before the tenure of President Mahama expires?
Well, thank you, Samson. Let me wish your listeners good morning. And also my co-panelist, Dr. Charles Reku Brobe. I haven't seen him all of this year. It's good to see him. He's looking well. And also my colleague here, Mr. Chumberima, who I have never met. Now, the issue about let me start with the Joinder application.
That is so.
Yeah. Well, the NDC applied to join the defense against the petition of the NPP. We, the NPP, opposed the Joinder application. Our grounds for opposing the Joinder application is very simple. That our case, the complaint, the petition that we have taken to the Supreme Court of Ghana is against the conduct of the Electoral Commission. But the rules also specify that the person who may be affected by the decision on your petition, so the person who has an interest, a direct interest in the outcome of your petition, should also be included in the defense. In this case, the person who has been named as the victor and who we are petitioning, that declaration that we are petitioning against is the president of the country, John Mahama. So we named him in the petition as required by the rules. The NDC as a party applied to join. They said that they would also, or they may also be affected by the decision. So they wanted to join and also put up a defense. We opposed it on very simple grounds, that we haven't made any complaint against the NDC party. We haven't asked the court to grant us any reliefs against the NDC party. we said that we had issues on the declaration, the results that were declared, and which declared John Mahama. Those are the Electoral Commission and John Mahama. So we thought that whatever interest that the NDC may have can be adequately channeled through the interest of John Mahama, the president, who also happens to be the leader of the NDC. That whatever interest, if it's a number of lawyers, technical advice, financial and support, whatever, that those interests can be secured through John Mahama. And so it wasn't necessary for the NDC to be joined as a separate respondent. And that they are joined, that they are coming into the case where you have to duplicate giving them the petition and they having to respond and all of that would amount to unnecessary delay. We are unsure that this matter is dealt with speedily, whichever way that it will go. And that is in the interest of this country that the matter is resolved as quickly as possible. Indeed, the whole intent of challenging election results through a petition is to allow for a speedy resolution so that the country can move forward. And that the NDC joining in a separate capacity will just delay the process, and that whatever interest they have in the matter can be secured under the interest of John Mahama, the president, who is also their leader. So it is a very simple objection. But the courts, in their wisdom, decided that despite the reservations that we had, they think that the NDC should join.
3 of the justices agreed with you.
Yes, the majority disagreed. They said they took cognizance of our anxiety. They said that they take note of it and they would ensure that, with their experience, that delays that are unnecessary do not attend upon the case. So they took cognizance of it. So they said that the NDC may be affected in case they decide that the elections should be rerun, for example. It's the NDC who would have to support John Mahama or whoever as a candidate and so on. So they should join. We accept it in good faith. For us, it doesn't do anything to the substance of our case. The substance of our case is not against John Mahama. It is not against the NDC. It is against the Electoral Commission. So it doesn't affect the substance of our case at all. We're only worried that it doesn't bring delays upon the case. But once the judges have ruled, we accept it in good faith. We accept the assurance that they have given that they would see that the case is not unnecessarily delayed. And we would move forward to the substantive case.
That's Nana Komia, Communications Director of the NPP 2012. Now, we will come to look at the question of delay, because that is at the heart of this discussion going forward. Chum, tell me, from where you sit, you share the opinion that the NPP in the first place should not have opposed the application at all?
Yeah, definitely. You know, Nana Komia said that the rules provide that you serve any person or anyone whose interests will be affected by the outcome of the case. You understand it? Indeed, so many people, anybody who even voted for John Mahama can say that my interest will be affected by the outcome of the case. Okay. Now, if the NPP had filed against the EC alone, they filed a petition against the EC alone, and the NPP was, the NDC was trying to join, and they had opposed, I would have said, okay, maybe they have a case. But this is a question where they filed the petition against John Mahama, who was sponsored by the NDC. So if the NDC applies to join and you oppose it, it means that you are separating John Mahama from the NDC, something that cannot be done. Indeed, John Mahama did not have...
But you also recognize that presidential election petitions are disputes are strictly regulated by law.
Yes, what I'm saying is that you realize that John Mahama did not go as an independent. Now, when it comes even to evidence, John Mahama
just
will
a minute.
rely...
Let me introduce Kojo Edu Asare. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Good morning.
All right.
Pleasure is mine.
former MP for Adenta. I'm sure he's not, alien to the show.
Yeah, like I was saying, when it comes to evidence, John Mahama will rely on the NDC agents for his evidence. You understand it? The NDC sponsored John Mahama for the election. On the ballot paper, you realize that John Mahama's picture was there, the NDC name was there, the NDC logo was there. So you cannot separate John Mahama from the NDC. Now you go and oppose this application, which to me was very, very simple. There was no need for judges to sit on this simple issue. I mean, it will not take away anything that the MPP wants the judges to rule upon. You have a petition that is filed against the EC and then John Mahama. NDC joins. What will it spoil if the NDC comes into this matter? They have a direct interest. The ultimate interest, if the NPP has a case against the EC, and let's say the EC loses the case, who suffers? It's the NDC that suffers. So it stands to reason that definitely as you are filing a case against the sitting president, who was sponsored by the NDC has a direct interest in the outcome of the case. The government is being funded by the NDC.
Some will say you are being simplistic about this issue without averting your mind to the regulations, the rules that regulate the particular, petition that is currently pending. Nana, let me hear your quick intervention, and I'll come back to him to finish.
Thank you, Samson. My quick intervention is that my brother here is saying that we are separating the NDC from John Mahama.
We're opposing the...
Actually, we are not separating the NDC
You
from
say
John
that
Mahama.
he represents the NDC.
So
in fact, he is the leader of the party.
So we actually believe that the NDC and John Mahama are one
same.
and the same, whose interests are the same.
Yeah.
It is rather you who is seeking to
the
separate
judges
the
who
two.
dissented also suggested that John Mahama represents the interests of the NDC anyway.
You see, if you go to court, if the NDC has a problem, and you go to court, and you file a case against Asedun Ketia, does Asedun Ketia represent NDC? No. He has a capacity in the NDC. So if you have a case against the NDC, you must go as Kwame Atta against the NDC. And then you can mention some names there, but you don't say that John Mahama is the leader of NDC, and therefore John Mahama is NDC. It is wrong. John Mahama, yes, is the leader of NDC, but John Mahama is not NDC.
So you are now separating
NDC,
them. You are now separating the two.
No, if you file against John Mahama, you are filing against his personal capacity as John Mahama. But you are saying that John Mahama is the leader of NDC, and therefore John Mahama is NDC. And I'm saying that no, that cannot stand. John Mahama and the NDC are separate entities, even though he's the leader of NDC. So if you want to
I thought
sue
you said we were
NDC,
separating them. Now we are not separating
no, I'm saying
them.
that
You are now separating the two.
You sought to separate John Mahama from the NDC. You understand? In this electoral petition. I'm saying that John Mahama did not go as an independent candidate. He's not standing on his own. He is standing on the ticket of NDC. So if anything at all, you should have sued, you should have named NDC.
All right. I think we need to fast forward to the issue of the fear of delay and the attendance matters that are coming up, because what we are talking about really has been decided. Like it or not, I mean, NDC is now a respondent to the petition. Dr. Rekubrobe, from where you have been observing the process so far, you think it was fair game?
I think once you've entered a process, you must allow it to run its course. And I think the danger in what I'm seeing is that there is a huge public expectation of expeditious determination, but that is being tempered by the requirements of law. And that's why it is said that the wheels of justice move very slowly.
But that public expectation you talk about is legitimate also because we are told that by the mechanisms that have been put in place for election dispute adjudication, it is supposed to be speedy.
Well, what is speedy? But speedy does not take the place of due process. You are the lawyer and you understand that. What I'm saying is this, you know, NPP did file a petition, NPP raised an objection. In your introduction, you talked about 4 or 5 other objections which have been raised by both sides. The law and the due process does not allow for these things just to be set aside. They must be gone through. As I sit here, I am still waiting judicial review on the case between the Radio I and Joy FM, which was started in 1995. 1995. We're still waiting for a review from the Supreme Court.
Okay, but that's in a different category, but you're using that as an example.
What I'm saying is that the only obligation and expectation, as far as I know, and I stand to be corrected, was that MPP needed to file its petition by a certain date, 21 days.
That is so.
There's absolutely, in my mind, and I stand to be corrected again, any fixed date by which the thing should be determined. It doesn't say in 74 or whatever that by 2 months or 3 months or whatever.
When the pleadings are closed, when all the papers that are supposed to be filed and the processes, by my reading, if I remember correctly, in a matter of 15 days, the hearing is supposed to have started.
Absolutely, but the hearing cannot step aside all the other things.
In the interlocutory
processes
that are coming
exactly.
up.
So the issue really has to be, you know, I mean, I don't want to go back, but I think one of the questions that I asked was MPP joining, I mean, NDC being joined, was it going to really fundamentally affect MPP's case?
And what was your answer?
I didn't know, and if it didn't, you know, in this whole matter, let me be very, very clear. On the NDC side, is my good friend Chachu. He managed to keep a case going for 8 years. There are people who can raise all kinds of little interjections, which are legally allowable, that cannot be stepped aside, that will delay the process. So I think it's in our interest to really look at some of these things and say, look, the quality of our case is such that if JC was to send the Holy Ghost to come in and enter, we're still confident of it. I.e., the MPP needs to be very careful that it doesn't fall into the trap of responding each time the other side, you know, files these interlocutory, whatever you call them. Because there's a huge expectation on the side of its supporters and of our members that there's going to be a quick resolution and victory will be on our side.
That is so.
Now, it is important as these things evolve that we begin to maybe let it become obvious that as long as these things are going on, it may not be so easy to do so. And also it's important that people do not start putting pressure on the Supreme Court by saying that, why don't you decide this matter quickly? It cannot step aside the rules of court. As long as somebody raises an objection, it will have to go through the process. So my fear with all of these things, and I will link it later to the matter that I think caused my invitation here, is that we don't want to get into a vacuum in which the governance process and the whole process of the democracy in this country is caught up in a legal entanglement. And that, I think, is my fear.
All right. Now, Mr. Dwasari, take your very brief comments, preliminary comments on this matter.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You have been celebrating the victory. There are some who are being, it is said that they are taking it too much because it doesn't amount to much anyway.
Well, I'm trying to understand what
that having the NDC being allowed to join doesn't give you an upper hand, as it were, in the matter. So what is there to celebrate?
For me, I don't think I've seen anybody in that mood yet, because this is just a little, let me say, piece of the whole drama. So, yes, as my brother just said, the NDC as a party has a view that the president, or let's say its flag bearer, or the president-elect should...
He's president now, not
president.
No,
then president-elect, as at the time the petition was filed. You know, so we think as a party collectively, we have that responsibility to ensure that this case is taken through its right processes. That also means that, as my brother again said, the president did not stand as an independent candidate. Number two, it was the party machinery, okay, that was used to conduct this election. All the 26,000 polling centers had 2 representatives of the party.
Of the president.
Of the party.
By the rules.
Yes, of the
by the rules.
Yes,
CI 75.
I agree, but it's
representatives of the president and representatives of the parliamentary candidates.
But as it is the party machinery that put this structure in place.
That's correct.
They trained these people. They took them through the rudiments of the process, that is the electoral process.
The organized training for them, yeah.
So certainly, if there's a case that has something to do with the representatives at the place, because don't also forget that the NPP is, or let's say the petitioners, are asking about, they said they are going to provide evidence for about 4,000 plus polling centers. In that case, who is the representative, or who were the representatives of the party or the president at that place? It is the party that took, the president, yes, had a hand in the campaign, but the best part of the campaign...
You may not be part of the legal team, and you are not part of the legal team of the NDC, but the comments that you find within the media circles is that what you're doing now, what the NDC legal team is doing now, calling for better particulars, asking the NPP to show more of the evidence of what it is complaining about, that all of these are simply tactics to delay a speedy trial.
I beg to differ on that score. You see, you are telling Ghanaians, the petitioners are telling Ghanaians they have 4,700 and something polling, evidence of 4,700 and something polling centers. They're going to provide evidence from these centers. So who is delaying whom? If you are going to provide, if you are asking for...
The evidence, as I understand, are contained in blue sheets.
Wonderful.
And all of you have access to these sheets.
The blue sheets were signed by people. We want to present somebody who was present at that polling center whenever that issue comes up, so that they tell us, or they tell Ghanaians, whatever happened.
Something, not only are you host, but you're also a lawyer. Well, what is the requirement of the petitioner in terms of evidence? I just want to know.
Yeah, there's one thing I don't do as a host. Unless it is blatantly, fatal.
I'm not asking you to pronounce. I'm just saying that on the rules of evidence.
Yes.
I mean, if I file a petition...
They have a right so to ask. But now they have put it before their lords at the Supreme Court. A determination will soon be made.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think the question I was really asking was whether, one, there's an expectation that evidence would be adduced to support these claims. And two, if that is an expectation, and if we know whether that evidence has already been provided. Because if it has been provided...
As in whether they are going to simply rely on the affidavit evidence, or they will go beyond that and call witnesses. Is that the question you're asking?
Or they will provide the pink sheets on which...
They'll certainly provide the pink sheets as part of the evidence in court.
But then doesn't that then make it spurious for the NDC to ask?
Right. Let's see what the judges will say. And I'm very sure the NPP has opposed the application for further and better particulars. You do that in a minute, and then we'll move it a bit fast track.
You see, it's a simple matter. You have even the EC, the presiding officers of the EC. Their figures are what the NPP is contesting. So if we talk about 4,709 polling stations having irregularities, it stands to reason that the people whose figures are being contested are brought to say what happened, at least to the list what happened. Now, the NDC is asking for better, further and better particulars. Very simple. Bawumia went on press conference, did a press conference, told Ghanaians about, I think, one of the irregularities that
the lawyers are not referring to the press conference, and you know that. They will not refer to press conference.
And I'm saying that
as far as it is now, they are referring to the pleadings that are before the court.
If you want a speedy resolution of this matter, what NPP must do, even, is to quickly bring these irregularities to the fore.
Now let's now move on to the NPP's decision to boycott Parliament, vetting committee, to boycott the BOEM elections, all the boycotts. There are questions that are coming up that what you are doing is indecent.
You want me to start?
Yes.
Thank you, Samson. Let me just conclude quickly on the previous matter. I mean, at the end of the day, when your story is sweet and credible, you don't need 5,000 people to tell it for you. We believe that our story is credible, and we want the matter to be resolved quickly.
Okay.
Anybody who wants a delay and are going to come with interlocutory issues, I mean, Ghanaians will be the judges, and the Supreme Court justices are there.
Well, the petitioner started with the objection to the panel. So
yes,
let's move forward.
So at the end of the day,
yeah,
it's in the interest of the whole country that the matter is resolved quickly on the merits. Delays will not help the country move forward. Today we're talking about boycotting of parliamentary by-elections and so on. All of these things arise from the case. So it's in the interest of the country that a case is resolved quickly.
The question has been asked time and again. You have put your petition before the Supreme Court. You trust that the court will give you justice. So why take these further steps?
Well, to answer your question directly, putting your case before the Supreme Court does not preclude other actions that are also legitimate.
Putting your case before the Supreme Court presupposes that you want to follow the law.
But that's why I use the word legitimate. That putting your case before the courts does not preclude you from engaging in other activities that are legitimate. Unless we can be shown that those other activities are not legitimate. If they are legitimate, then the two of them are not mutually exclusive. And that
you are being criticized left, right, and center that the boycotts are not desirable. As you may say, they are legitimate, but they are not desirable. They are not good for the forward march of the country's democracy and all. The Ghana Bar Association has come clear on that, asking you to rescind your decision. You've got one of your own, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, saying that you must square the circle or cut the comic tragedy.
Let me answer you directly. We don't expect that all the activities that we undertake in support of our petition before the Supreme Court would have universal approval. We don't expect that. No decision will have 100% approval. So we don't have a problem with that at all. Our interest is that what we do is legitimate and is in consonance with our interest. That's all that we want to do. Now, I've given you the first leg of the NPP's action, that the matter before the Supreme Court does not stop us from engaging in other activities so far as those activities are also legitimate. There may be hunger strikes, they are legitimate. There may be protest marches, they are legitimate. There may be vigils, they are legitimate. There may be symposia, they are legitimate. There may be all kinds of campaign in support of our action. They are legitimate.
Someone would ask, is it that you would have wished to have a third party in the seat of government now so that all the parties would have gone to where they previously were before the elections, pending the determination of the suit, or that you are creating a situation for some interventionist, action?
No, the rules don't provide for a third party. So we are operating within the rules. The rules say that when your petition is pending, the status quo remains. We are happy with that. We haven't challenged the status quo. We haven't tried to thwart the status quo.
The rule says that when the president has been declared, president, prima facie in law, he is president. And like you said, the status quo remains. So if you're following the rule, why don't you follow the rule to the letter?
But we haven't.
You don't want to be associated with some actions of his.
But we haven't thwarted the actions of the president. We haven't stopped the NDC people in parliament from working. What we have said is that we will not support them. That is also our legitimate right. If we went and blocked the parliament, for example, then you would say that we are thwarting the rules. If we went and blocked the castle, for example, to prevent John Mahama from going to the office, then you could say that we are thwarting the rules. Indeed, in other countries where there are election petitions of this magnitude, Thailand is a recent example. Even though the petitioners had taken their case before the Supreme Court, they also went and occupied the international airport for weeks. We don't want to do that. Look at what happened in Ukraine. Even though the matters were in court, there were also a lot of activities that amounted to thwarting the workings of the
And what is that
system.
supposed to achieve?
In our case, we haven't done anything of the sort. We have taken the matter to court. We haven't stopped President Mahama from exercising his functions as president. We haven't stopped the Parliament of Ghana from working.
What will the boycotts achieve?
What the boycotts will achieve, two things. Number one, like I've said, that the protest is not limited to the courts. It gives us another avenue or other avenues to express our protest, and they are legitimate. Secondly, because we are contesting the results that declare John Mahama the president, we don't want to be directly involved in matters that directly constitute his government, like his swearing in and composition of his cabinet ministers and so on. Those issues that directly constitute his government, we don't want to be part of those. We don't want to support those activities. Also, away from those activities,
by the rules that you said that you respect, at this time, in this point in time, it is not NDC's government or John Mahama's government. It is the government of the Republic of Ghana, headed by him. And the status quo should remain. And the rules that you are following in court says that until the Supreme Court decides otherwise, everything he has done, there's no prejudice to that.
If you are not careful, you'll be suffering from a slight confusion. You may be confusing not supporting an activity or not taking part in an activity as equal to thwarting that activity.
Not taking part to achieve what aim?
That is not our understanding. Not taking part in the deliberations of the Committee of Parliament, in our view, is not thwarting the work of that committee. Indeed, the work has been going on. Not taking part in the swearing in of John Mahama, in our view, is not thwarting the swearing in of John Mahama. The swearing in came on. We've been told about how glorious it is. So we don't have a problem. Indeed, boycott, since that's what we're talking about now, the NDC, they've used boycotts on several occasions to express protest. When E.T. Mensah was detained by the BNI may have the authority to take the action they took. The NDC disagreed. They used the floor of Parliament to express their protest. They boycotted Parliament for 13 sitting days. In 2007, when Dana Bodapi was convicted by a court of law, giving final judgment, they disagreed. They didn't stop the courts from giving its judgment. They didn't stop the judiciary from working. But they used the floor of Parliament to express their protest. And they boycotted Parliament for 4 or 5 days, including the day that the President Kufu, the then president, was delivering his State of the Nation address. It was legitimate. It didn't stop the Parliament from working. We couldn't force them to be part of something they disagreed with. They used the floor of Parliament to protest. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
But when you are getting to a point where you have very important bodies like the Bar Association, when you have very important key people within your party suggests that what you are doing is not in the best interest of the country. Aren't you afraid that even though what you are doing may be legitimate, you may lose what may have been, goodwill that you were enjoying over the action that you are taking?
Well, two quick answers. Number one, I have already said to you that we don't expect that all the platforms that we chose to express our protest will be agreeable to everybody. There'll be varying degrees of agreement. We expect that, no problem. Number two, this business about national interest. What national interest, as far as I'm concerned? We, even by the results that have been declared, we got over 5 million votes. Is it the interest of those 5.2 million people who support the NPP? The NDC got 5.6 million votes. Is it the interest of the 5.6 million people that we are talking about? When the Supreme Court decides on the way forward, that at that point becomes the national interest. As we are in this process of contest, where's the national interest?
Let me bring in Dr.
Now, let me just conclude. You know, remember, this brings to my mind, since you're talking about Chachuchi Kata and Dr. Rekubobi mentioned when he leading the case and all of that. You know, he was convicted in 2005 or 2006. I can't remember precisely. But there were year-long protests. It's called a Free Chachu movement. You couldn't have 1 week pass by without some activity in protest against the conviction of Chachuchi Kata by a court. They were legitimate. If they broke the law, that would be a different matter. But they said they were protesting against even though an appeal had been filed and the matter was before the courts. It didn't stop his supporters, all of which are in the NDC, many of them now talking against the NPP. It didn't stop them from engaging in a year-long series of activities to express their protest.
All right. Point noted there. Now, Dr. Charles Rekubobi, and I'm sure that you know the major reason he is on this platform this morning is because he wrote on these matters. And you've heard me bring you the gist of his description of what the boycotts represent. You have come under a barrage of attacks for stating your views in the manner that you have done. How are you taking them?
Let me read you what Gorbachev said. He said, and this was talking about the movement away from communism. We've abandoned the claim to have a monopoly on truth. We no longer think we are always right, and those who disagree with us are not our enemies. As for what people think, I think my position has been in all of this that you would expect people to bash. I will very happy to engage people who have direct responses to the things that I place. Sometimes with these things, people are trying to divert the matters of substance. But since you brought me here, I hope you indulge me and let me develop my case. And I'll start off by quoting from the letter that the chairman wrote to the Ghana Bar Association. And I quote this paragraph. Whilst the challenge is pending, MPP members of Parliament will engage fully in the work of Parliament. They will participate vigorously in the everyday business. They will be involved in all legislative functions and assist in carrying out parliamentary oversight responsibility of the executive and public purse in the normal course of business. Scrutinize and contribute to the making of the budget, study and help pass bills, etc. While the challenge is pending, MPP members will, however, not participate in any activities or deliberate on matters that involve the constitution of President Mahama's governance, like vetting of ministers, etc. Now here's a contradiction. This is where my use of illogical and nonsensical seems to have. The whole work of Parliament, you know, this constitution, the 1992 constitution, was written to legitimize a constitutional dictatorship. And the powers of this country to govern have more or less been given to the president. And nothing that Parliament does is not touched by the president. let me quote you Article 108, because I've done the research on this. Parliament shall not, unless the bill is introduced or the motion is introduced by or on behalf of the President, proceed upon a bill including an amendment to a bill that, in the opinion of the person presiding, makes provision for any of the following: the imposition of taxation or the alteration of taxation otherwise than by reduction, the imposition of a charge on the consolidated fund or the public funds of Ghana, or alteration of any such charge other than by reduction, the payment, issue, or withdrawal from the fund. What this is saying is that absolutely everything, nobody can touch or spend Ghana's money except that action is initiated by the President.
So it's not everything, it's about finance?
No, I'm just coming. But what does Parliament? No, bills. What are the purposes of bills? They are to initiate actions. You can't really pass bills unless you put budgets and other things to it. And Parliament itself hasn't got the power to initiate anything that has a charge on the consolidated
fund.
The President, therefore, budgets are brought by the President. It says that they will participate in discussions of loans, but those loans will be brought by the government. You participate in bills. Everything that actually happens in Parliament issues from the initiative of the President, who, according to the same constitution, holds the executive authority of Ghana. So that's what I'm saying, that the logical conclusion of the action is that, pending the determination of the case, MPP must withdraw from Parliament. It's simply, that's what I thought was squaring the circle. It is not possible to participate in the functions of Parliament because, by the Constitution and the laws of this land, they are all triggered by the actions of the President. So it is this statement that the chairman has signed is not only just disingenuous, but it flows contrary to the law of the land. So I have not disputed the right to boycott. In fact, my views on boycott go as far back as 1992, after the election, when the party boycotted the first parliament, and in 1997, when I wrote a piece saying that the party was wrong in boycotting Kwame Pepre's reading of the budget, and then went on to do that. I've never believed that boycott, whether it's by my party or any other party, has any effect in terms of affecting the outcome of the governance process. But in this particular process, the use of the word illogical is that you simply cannot stop at one. You simply cannot say that you will not vet ministers, but you participate in parliamentary debates and legislation and loans, because all those actions flow from the initiatives of the President.
And the use of the word nonsensical.
In fact, I brought, you see, in Fantinu Town, we use the word nonsensical has got several meanings. And I brought the definitions for you so that you don't. The normal definition that everybody uses is the one they know, which is foolish. There's another definition of nonsensical, having no intelligible meaning. I brought these for you so you can see. You know, they don't have a single, you know, so in fact, if you look at the word illogical, one of its interpretation is that it is nonsensical, having no intelligent meaning. So I'll still contend, and I'll still hold to the view that the position taken by my party, insofar as you say you're going to limit yourself to the vetting of ministers but will participate in anything else, is illogical.
And you say that you are a member, true and true, of the NPP.
I think.
And the NPP's executive take a decision, and you decide to take a different position on a matter that is so important, critical.
I think I would defer to what my party colleague said. We don't need to be all agreed. And if you had time, I could give you a catalogue of dissent from within the party on major issues. It's not today. And I think we should really not get ourselves into a situation of thinking that we should all run closed shops and all these debates must be closed. There must be no public discourse.
Your words are being thrown back at you by AFAG, by
AFAG has come to support my words.
Many of the members of the
AFAG has come to support my position
in respect of the boycott of Parliament.
Yes, but the point I'm trying to make is that which part of what I've said is wrong? You see, I want people to challenge me on the issues I have raised, because these are very legitimate issues. Am I wrong in respect of Article 108 and the role of the presidency? Am I wrong in respect of what Parliament's powers are, which is essentially to moderate initiatives of the president? Unlike America, where Parliament or the Senate or Congress can initiate its own actions which have got a charge on the national purse of America, our Parliament doesn't have that. It is only a commentator on the actions of the executive. And as you know, executive power of Ghana lies with the president of Ghana. So what I'm saying is that whether it's a political tactic of let's cross the bridge when we get there, because very soon the president is going to come and give a State of the Union address. Very soon the president is going to ask his Minister of Finance to present a budget. Very soon the president may bring, he's just been to Turkey, he's got gargantuan loans. Those loans you have to place before Parliament. Every action that has a bearing on the governance of this country emanates from the initiative of the president.
The grassroots of the party disagree with you that they, in their estimation, you should be seen to be supporting the cause of the party at this critical moment.
Even if it's
that
wrong?
What you are doing hurts the party.
Samson,
The party is in court challenging the validity of the election of the president. The party's position is that its candidate, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, should have been president, which you would have been happier.
Which I worked
if the case had been. Exactly.
Yes.
So you seem to be derailing their efforts and their forward march in this direction.
Let me quote my colleagues first. They are not mutually exclusive. What I'm saying is that the action must proceed. But the framers of our Constitution also saw it right and proper that governance must go on, and said that the person that is pronounced president by the commissioner remains president until such time that it is changed by a decision. And the actions that they take, those actions remain legitimate and cannot be, if like, rolled back even if they were to be moved. So what I'm saying is this. Insofar as we have a situation where President Mahama is recognized by law as the president of Ghana, then our party either has to, in a sense, cooperate in the governance process, or it has the right to say that as long as Mahama is president, I don't want to be part of this. But then it must just move itself away from Parliament completely. You know, this is the logic of the actions that it has taken and that has been put down by the chairman. It is, you cannot square the circle because you cannot participate in Parliament because everything that happens there, one way or the other, will be coming because of the president. So I gave my view on the court action long ago. Is being prosecuted. I have said, fine, let it go ahead. But you can twin track or triple track many, many things. But I do not believe, and as we've just discussed, we cannot expect that this court case may end next month or the following month. So are we going to say that the party will sit in Parliament and do what? It's a very important question that needs to be addressed, and addressed with, in my view, a counter-argument as to how do you square the circle.
Let me bring in Honorable Edwasare here. Now, the NDC's position and attitude really in Parliament is that, look, we can't be bothered, ignore them anyway. We'll go on with the business of governance. Is that how to go about this process?
Something. I think what the question you put to me does not if I should put it that way, it's not necessary. Okay, it's a peripheral issue. Nobody should take that stance as a case in this matter. We are dealing with the responsibilities of members of parliament. If I make a comment on the side, or if my party feels a certain way, it has no bearing on what your responsibility, what you are tasked by the Constitution, your performance or in Parliament as a member of Parliament has no bearing on what any party's view, okay, is.
No, but this is a
matter.
party that put them
Whatever.
in Parliament.
Listen, the
They
issue.
campaign on the ticket of the party.
Listen, I want to ask a few questions, especially to the NPP and their members of Parliament. And if you read the statement the chairman put out, it contradicts itself
How?
in so many ways. Let me read a portion of what he said here, if you will permit me. The paragraph 4, it says that they will participate vigorously in the everyday business of Parliament. They will be involved in all legislative functions and assist in carrying out Parliament's oversight responsibility of the executive and public purse, the normal course of parliamentary business. NPP MPs will scrutinize
And contribute to the making of the budget, study and help pass bills, and deliberate on loan agreements and all financial transactions involving the state.
Wonderful. So you want to ask, you boycott the vetting of the ministers who are supposed to present all these issues in Parliament, laying of papers, presenting budget in the name of the president. Honestly, seriously.
They will do so, but not while the challenge is pending.
They will do so not while the challenge is pending.
That's my understanding of his
Well,
letter, because when you move the next step, he says, whilst the challenge is pending, MPP members of Parliament will, however, not participate in any activities or deliberate on matters that involve the constitution of President Mohammed's government, like vetting of the ministers of state designates. The decision was taken by the National Executive, and so on and so forth.
You see, so he singled out the vetting. Okay, so that is the issue they will not participate in, or the only issue they will not deal with.
Something, you see, the contradiction comes from this. Why did you single out the vetting? Because you are contesting the legitimacy of the president's election.
And
So you
because the
cannot
ministers
single out-
are supposed to assist the president in the performance of his
Exactly.
functions.
So you cannot single out the vetting because you are challenging his legitimacy and say that every other action which can only emanate from him by the constitution of this country,
you have made
are
that
prepared
point
to do that.
in
You
the
see-
most strongest terms, yeah.
The majority leader, who doubles as the, when approved, will double as the minister of government business in Parliament. He can lay papers on behalf of other ministers, and his position as minister will also have to go through vetting for approval of Parliament. So, what are we talking about? That is the problem. I think that NPP and their minority actually, they are shortchanging Ghanaians. And I think that should be...
Why are they shortchanging Ghanaians?
Listen, people go and queue.
Nana Kumia is telling you
Yes.
about the numbers of people that voted for the NPP. And we know that in this country now, the country is almost split politically or by the ballots between the NPP and the NDC.
No, you see, when people wake up at dawn and go and queue for you and vote for you, you don't behave like this. Honestly, the principles, the so-called, I'm putting the principles in quotes, that's not, to put it bluntly.
You're suggesting that the NPP members do not support the action by the party?
It is parochial, and IFAG has put it in its right sense. It is unnecessary. It is irresponsible, if I should put it that way. It is totally irresponsible for NPP minority members of Parliament to behave the way they are doing. Because you see, You also want to ask, the budget, as has been said, the budget will be coming to Parliament. Will they participate? This is Ghana's money we are going to spend. I would have loved for them to boycott. If this case was in court before the 6th, or let's say that's earlier hours of 7th January, they could have chosen not to be sworn in. Then we will know they are really serious with this matter. But you don't get sworn in. Take this month.
You've not been sworn in as president. That is what they are challenging.
Sorry?
And in fact, some of the parliamentary results, they are challenging them also. We are aware of about 30 plus of the parliamenary
so far it's only
results
about
that they
3
want
or
to
4
challenge.
that is in court.
But they have announced that they will challenge as many as 30.
In tree, they say, if I have an intention and I haven't executed that intention, just talking about it does not legitimize it. So the point here is that, or the fact still remains that, look, the Ghanaian, let me ask you, this whole month, Parliament is on recess too. You ask yourself, yes, they will be paid. All members of Parliament will be paid this month. And one of the reasons they went on recess was to refurbish Parliament, the Parliament plenary, and also to see to this appointment of the president. Okay, so if you are going to take salary at the end of this June,
but they will not take allowance for being part of the vetting committee. They will not take allowance.
Who says?
Because they boycotted.
Who says?
They will?
Who says? My senior
the
colleague
NPP
is here.
MPs
the
who are supposed to be part of the vetting committee who are not attending
service board
will be paid?
Doesn't have that power to withdraw whatever privileges any member of Parliament will have.
You're serious about that?
I'm telling you, if they are due for it, it will be given to them. It will be given to them. They will not lose anything. So please, I think that this whole thing is irresponsible.
Now, just hold on a minute for me. Nana, you have been a member of Parliament. Is it true that irrespective of the boycott, those who are supposed to be MPs who are supposed to be on the appointments committee will still take their allowances?
No, what my brother is saying, it doesn't make sense. Sitting allowances. If you don't sit, how could you collect your allowances? The administrative machinery, why would they register you as present and pay you? Because the allowance is for sitting. As we come here, you don't give us a PESWA, but assuming you give us something for transport and somebody is not present, how does he get it? Because his name is supposed to, his name is on the panel.
It's the place you got that wrong. That's how this that happened.
And my brother,
I would personally, you know, campaign against
it.
Don't worry.
My brother here is a member of Parliament before. I have been a chairman of various committees of Parliament. If you don't come to the committee sitting, you don't get your allowance. Unless the administrative system is poor.
That's all the clarity I wanted you to bring to this issue. Yep.
Beyond the sitting allowance, I see sometimes some of these issues, we don't want to sit here and talk about them. Beyond that, there are.
You don't want to talk about them because you are protecting them.
Why not? This is an institution we have. You can't come and sit where
you're protecting them even when they are doing wrong.
Where you work in Joy FM, you don't come and discuss your salary.
No, but if my colleague does wrong, I will not protect them.
What I'm saying is he is also aware that beyond certain allowances, there are other allowances that come to members of Parliament.
But those are general allowances.
Yes. And these days will be counted as part of it. Days you did not work will be counted as part of, you know. So please.
Let me clear something quickly so our listeners don't get confused. The boycott of the appointments committee involved 11 members of the NPP. The other members of the NPP, including those 11 members, are sitting in Parliament. They are just not attending, the 11 members, the appointments committee, which is one committee out of 20 or so.
Are they 11 members? Yesterday I counted about 12 empty seats. I was in the vetting. I went there.
There are 11 members, and I think the NDC has 14.
All right.
So please, don't confuse this with a boycott of Parliament. The members of Parliament are still working as members of Parliament and would attend parliamentary sittings. The 11 members of the committee, which is one committee out of 25 or so, have declined to sit in that committee.
Thank you very much.
Let's not get confused.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Dwasari, wrap up.
Yes, it doesn't, what he said does not change the status quo. If 11 representing the minority on the appointments committee decides, why has it taken national attention if it was just about 11 people? That is not the issue. The issue is about what you have been mandated or what you've been elected, your functions as an MP. That is the issue. So whether it is 2, 3, 1,
there is really talk about the fact that if you are an MP, it is true that you are an MP on a party's ticket. But after you become MP, you represent the entire constituency. Sure. Whether you are an MPP MP, there are people there who voted for you as MPP members. There are NDC members who didn't vote for you, but they belong to your constituency and you represent them. There are PPP, there are PNC, CPP, and those who even have a vote but didn't vote, and those who don't even have a vote, that you represent all of them. But you know that in reality, it is the party. So they may be representing the interest of the party.
Fine. For me, there are repercussions in this whole thing. I think Ghanaians are wide awake. They know what time it is. That's how come. You see, but when you are doing something and you get that privilege of the clergy, okay, or very sound associations in this country, like the Bar Association, the clergy, admonishing that, look, this is something you have to reconsider. For me, I think by the end of this week, it will be in their own interest to just join this whole thing, because
all right, let me now come
so
and hear Chumberima. But let me take a few messages that are coming in, including emails. And this one is coming from our regular panelist who is not here at the moment, Abdul Malik Kubako Jr. He says, with the benefit of hindsight, isn't it obvious that both the NDC Joinder application and the petitioner's objection provided the Supreme Court with the opportunity to interpret or deepen the understanding of the law relative to Article 64(1) of the Constitution and the relevant aspects of CI 74 as to the status of respondents and perhaps possibly that of petitioners? The 6-3 ruling, in the absence of a review, has helped clear a gray area in how to handle presidential election petitions. In that respect, I don't think the Joinder application and the subsequent objection were of no value. The law and regulations on presidential election petitions have been re-engineered and recrafted via the Supreme Court 6-3 ruling on the petitioner's objection to the NDC's Joinder application. This is how to grow the law through established judicial and democratic mechanisms. Prince Amwa Abakrampa, he writes, if the NPP believes in the rule of law and democracy, why are they boycotting everything, including vetting? I will urge them to think of 2016. Well, Jake says they will not boycott everything. I suggest Ghanaians must be much worried about, you must send a text that has a bearing on what we are discussing presently. From Ata Imoro in Walensee, when you are challenging the legitimacy of a king, you do recognize any other sub-chiefs enstood or ensconced by the king thereafter. It is therefore proper that the NPP have boycotted the vetting process. You mean they do not recognize what the king does? Spike in the USA, Tarzan's posture towards the NPP at this time should be ignored, period. From Imoro, again, from Walensee, he says, the NDC joining the court case will only prolong the process in court, but has no material effect on the final judgment of the matter. Still, the battle is the Lord's. Thank you very much. Manche Bruce, the second in Takrady, writes, great spirits have always suffered violent opposition from mediocre minds. I believe the posting of Alan Kyerematen's posters is only a grand machination to divert the focus of the NPP and Ghanaians from the pursuit of justice at the Supreme Court and to breed confusion within the rank and file of the NPP and to, as well, whip up sentiment against Alan within the NPP fraternity. Unfortunately, it failed. The NPP must remain united, focused, and resolute in the pursuit of justice. Okay, I'll read some of those other text messages that have to do with issues we are yet to discuss sometime later. This one says that the great NPP cannot stampede in any way to participate in the well-rehearsed vetting of NDC. Not even Tarzan can alter this posture. Until the Supreme Court speaks, the NPP will not give in. This one from Thomas K. Mensah. It says, it beats my imagination why NPP MPs boycotted the vetting of nominated ministers. Have they forgotten that the same constitution that granted them the chance to make known their grievances to the Supreme Court says that until proven otherwise by the same court, anything done by the president stands because he did that as a president? If that is the case, then why have the NPP MPs sided with their party at the expense of the nation? Thank you very much for your messages. Now, Chum, if you can briefly wrap up our discussion on this point for us about the boycott and the necessity or otherwise. In fact, the NPP justifies it.
Yeah, you see, there is a trend of intolerance coming up in this nation. Anytime you post a dissenting view, even in your party, then you get a backlash. All sort of people insulting you.
And it happens in both parties?
It happens in both parties. I remember not too long ago when Dr. Mensa Otabio's tape came up, when people didn't know that it was even an old tape. In fact, on the social media, Dr. Mensa Otabio had a serious backlash. And when it turned out that, oh, it was an old tape, then it turned to the NDC being against the clergy. I think people must begin to understand democracy. You understand? Democracy is about sharing ideas, views. And you must understand that even within the same party, we may not share the same views. NDC came under a serious backlash from its founder. That's former President Rawlings. You understand it? When he pushed the autonomous government, we came under serious pressure because he thought things were not going on well. And to sweep these things under the carpet was going to hurt his party. That was his feeling. And therefore, he burst out. You realize that in the NDC, this happens a lot more than in the NPP. NDC does not belong to any one person. So, when there is any matter, everybody can speak his mind. I remember General Mosquito saying one day that there is serious internal democracy in the NDC. Why? You are not told to go and do something, and then you just follow. When something comes up, consensus is built, and then you go along that line. Dr. Okwebe has looked at the issues holistically. I said Nketia first used the word illogical, that the NPP had a problem with logic.
They had a problem with mathematics.
Yes, mathematics and logic. Then Dr. Rakube came up, says nonsensical and illogical. He's come up to explain the use of nonsensical, which I also understand and I believe in. You see, when you take the steps one by one, vis-a-vis what even the chairman of the NPP has written, you can see clearly there is no direction. They are in a state of confusion. Yes, boycotts are part of our democratic...
You disagree with them doesn't mean they are confused.
No, there is a confusion
Nana
in there.
has told you clearly what they intend to do,
you see,
and what they are doing.
I will come even
There's been reference to the Free Churchill movement. I'm sure you were in this country, right? I will come even to Nana Kumia's
statement that even if there is a by-election in their strongholds, they will not contest because they are contesting this EC, the same EC who is going to supervise these elections. You understand it? Now, why are you not contesting the parliamentarians who are in parliament now? Because they were declared winners by the same EC you are contesting. So if you have every problem with the EC...
You don't have problem with all the results.
No, you are saying that the same EC is the same EC who is going to superintend the by-elections. That means that you do not believe in the EC. In fact, it is the style of the NPP. they don't believe in institutions in this country. When inflation figures come up from the statistical service, they will tell you that Baumia says that this is the inflation figure. They have fought every institution that comes up with a view that is contrary to theirs.
All the parties have done same.
Please, but
all the parties have done same when they are in opposition.
Let us look at what is happening, especially over the last 4 years. Every institution that does not agree with the NPP's position, you have a backlash, including the EC. My biggest challenge is that they are even putting the officials, workers of the EC in a position which is very bad for the state.
To that comment, you now hear members of the NDC saluting the Ghana Bar Association for declaring its stance on this particular matter. Not too long ago, did you hear the comments from the NDC leading members about the Bar Association?
If you had let me finish,
that was an appendage of a certain political party.
I started by saying that there's a culture of intolerance which we need to curb. You see, both parties. Look, we had a 6-3 judgment from the Supreme Court. Before they give out their judgment, they know those who are dissenting, the majority. If the 3 who are dissenting says, okay, we are boycotting the process because our views are not being taken by the majority, what will happen in this country? You see, boycotts are part of the democratic process. But when it comes to your legitimate duty to be there, please, boycott does not come in. You understand it? We have the right to so many things, but are they good for us?
Is the boycott illegal?
The boycott, in this sense,
is illegal.
You are taking money. You are being paid for being a parliamentarian. Committees have been formed, for which you are supposed to be on there. Now, these ministers are the ones that are going to present the budget, the loans, and whatever, that you are going to either approve or disapprove later on. Then you boycott their vetting. Number 2, Nana Kumia talked about they supporting the NDC. Indeed, the NDC does not necessarily need the MPP to support them in ruling. From 1982 to 1986, when the MPP boycotted Parliament, the country did not stand. We moved ahead. Now, the NPP must be there as a credible. You said you're boycotting. You don't want to support. You don't want to support the NDC or the president in getting out the ministers. And I am saying that the NDC does not necessarily need the support of the NPP in vetting the ministers. Indeed, when they were not there, the ministers were vetted, and nothing stopped them from being approved, provided the committee passed them. You see,
from your calculation by the numbers in Parliament so far, is it your thinking that Parliament can work without the minority?
Why not? That's why
No. Have you computed the numbers of NDC MPs you have, MPP MPs you have?
What I'm saying is that
does the NDC have 2/3 majority?
The 2/3 majority is not needed in all instances.
It is needed in most important instances.
What I'm saying is that it is not needed in all instances.
And I'm saying in most important instances.
What you need.
And that is why the call to be careful in saying no, let's ignore them.
NDC has already
it is only needed when you need to change the
NDC has already been cautious. That is why they gave the second deputy speaker to Jogati. Why? Because they want to build consensus. And that is about democracy.
All right.
So democracy does not mean that you have right to boycott and therefore you must just wake up and decide that, oh, I will not be part of this process and that process. You are going to be paid for it.
All right, we take a quick break at this point. Newsfile is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of MTN Everywhere You Go and Bank
Thank you very much
Africa.
and welcome back
We'll be
to
right back. Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. Your text messages welcome 1-422. You can also post your comments on our Facebook wall and we will read them. I'll hear from Nana Akumia. He's been doing a little protest here. And I take it in good faith that you've had almost everybody here on the panel, speak against their action, and he wants to give some rebuttal. He wants an opportunity of a rebuttal. Nana?
Yeah, thank you, Samson. Let me start with my brother sitting next to me, Chumbrama. And he says that the NPP position is confusing and no direction. But from the questions that you were putting to him, it was very clear that his submission is totally confused and totally without direction. And he says that, NPP attacks institutions that don't agree with the NPP. I mean, has this man been in the country? The NDC that he proposed to speak for, they attacked the clergy. The president himself had to apologize for the attacks of the NDC on the clergy, the president himself. One senior clergyman described the NDC in terms that are frightening for this country. And he is talking about somebody attacking institutions. These people organized attacks on the judiciary. The chairman of the party said that they would deal with the judiciary. They would sack them if they don't sack themselves. That they have several ways of killing a cat. And he is coming to sit here to talk about somebody attacking judiciary.
And you are not also forgetting the recent attacks from the NPP on the judiciary.
No. What attacks have we mounted against the judiciary? Which one?
Titus Glover.
He attacked the judiciary?
The justices of the Supreme Court constitute the judiciary, don't they?
Titus Glover said that we will raise an objection to the presence of somebody. Objections are normal. Is that the same vein as a chairman of a party?
He impugned the integrity. He impugned the integrity of the presiding justice.
No. Samson, you are a lawyer. I'm not. But you know that objections are normal. They happen all the time. So if somebody says I'll raise an objection, how is that an attack? You're talking of people organizing demonstrators who go and attack the Supreme Court after the Yana case. You're talking of people who go to the court with canes. The General Secretary is so embarrassed, he says they are not his supporters, even though there are faces in there that are recognizable NDC office holders. We're talking of the president himself apologizing for the shameful attack on the clergy. You're talking of clergymen describing the NDC.
I'm sure if you're going that line, you can find examples for the NDC
Show
as
me the
well.
examples.
Look,
but if it was the Bar Association, the NDC that the Bar Association has spoken against, like you asked the gentleman, they said they were what? Surrogates of a political party because the Bar Association expressed some view that they didn't like. And look at him come to see to tell us we don't tolerate institutions. And brother Idu Asari, he says that because 11 people have absented themselves from a committee, people should not take their allowances. And we are supposed to. But Idu Asari, there you are talking against boycotts. I had told you your party's record as far as using boycotts are concerned. That because E.T. Mensah was detained by the BNI, you boycotted Parliament for 13 days. Not a committee of Parliament. The entire Parliament for 13 days. Because Dana Bodapi was convicted by a court of law, you boycotted Parliament for 5 days.
You've already told us about this.
So what is this bit? But let me also comment a bit on my senior brother, Reku Brobe. You see, Dr. Reku Brobe can disagree with his party, the NPP. We haven't subjected him to any disciplinary procedure. We haven't. So I don't understand why anybody can say we've attacked Dr. Reku. We have not attacked Dr. Reku Brobe. The words that he used against the party, those words have been thrown back at him. That is not an attack. He says that the actions of or the decisions of the NPP do not make sense. They do not make logic. Some of us also believe that his views also do not make sense. They do not conform to logic. Those are views, just like he had his views. It doesn't
matter the constitutional provisions he uses to buttress his point.
What constitutional provisions? My brother, where's the confusion in Jacob Chabilante's letter? He says that we would take part in parliamentary functions, but we would make exceptions to those functions that would support the constitution of Mahama's government. Where is the confusion? Where is the confusion? He's made an exception. Says that we will not take part in these activities because of our petition at the Supreme Court. So he's set the ground very clearly. Where is the confusion?
Okay, the Minister of Finance will bring the President's budget to Parliament. Members of Parliament, including the NPP MPs, will debate that.
Now,
It's not the president.
do you find what he's saying?
We have said.
Can you situate it now?
No, we have said.
That's just one example.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that.
Okay.
We have said that we will not be part of activities that we interpret as forming constituting the John Mahama's government. That is what we have said. We will decide. If you believe that debating the budget is part of the constitution of the government, that is your view. We don't believe so. No, we don't believe so.
You're not being objective.
But you have
clearly subjective issues.
Can I finish? I listened to you when you were making your directionless and confusing submissions. I listened to you. In our view,
You have used
those
the word nonsensical in another form.
I don't have a problem, Dr. Broby. I don't have a problem. But you see, when Dr. Reku Broby, you look at this statement, you can disagree with your party. You are a respected member of the party. When you go and say that somebody's decisions, and it's not just one person, it's the entire leadership of the party. When they take a decision and you disagree, you can state your disagreement. When you
But
go
that's what
ahead,
he's done.
No, but when you go ahead and describe them as illogical and nonsensical,
He's not describing the people.
he's not describing the
but
decisions.
the action.
Yeah, but that's what we're all
can be
talking
wrong.
about. We are talking about
So
the
you must
decisions.
provide the basis of the disagreement, and the basis of the disagreement is the lack of logic of it. That's the basis of the disagreement.
Fine. So other people would say that your submissions don't also have logic.
I have no
also
difficulty with that.
Now, let me also establish my case as far as Dr. Reku Broby is concerned.
So you finish up on that point.
Yeah, no problem. Now, when you say that Dr. Reku Broby's actions or his motives stem basically from the fact that he disagrees with the court action, that he says that once we have lost the elections, even though he agrees that there were flaws, there were massive irregularities, once we had agents there and so on, we are stopped from taking the matter up further. I'm saying, where is the logic in this? That if you have an establishment with your security and somebody is able to break in and burgle your establishment, and you arrest the person or you have evidence about the burglary.
You use Adjoa Safo as an example. She was watchful. She didn't sleep on the job. So she was able to detect the mistake there.
No problem.
So that is what he says. You should have required of all your agents.
So I'm saying
if they had done so and not slept on the job, you would not be here.
No problem. I'm saying that. So because Adjoa Safo did something and some other MP didn't do anything, so because of that we are stopped.
No,
when you have evidence.
No.
So based on that, he said that we shouldn't go to court.
I see.
Dr. Reku Broby lost elections for the chairmanship of the party. Didn't he threaten to go to court? He did. Elections for a small chairmanship of a party. You see?
Oh, you call that a small chairmanship of the party?
But on the scale of challenging the presidency, what is the party chairmanship?
It's introduced something which I suggest.
Can I finish? When I finish, you can.
Well, you're
Then he
taking a lot of
goes.
time.
Okay, let me just conclude.
Yeah, in 30 seconds, really.
Dr. Broby, we're talking about political party management here. He had his own party. What is the result of his management of that party?
Okay.
You see, so
let's have your reaction.
You can disagree.
I'll come to you. Let's have your reaction.
I haven't even finished, but because of time.
Let him come in, yeah.
The basis, I disagree with the party. I gave a reason for the disagreement. And I think that the debate should be about whether the reason for disagreement is rational or not. I have said, if you boycott an event, first of all, my positions of boycott have been very clear. It goes back many, many, many
You
years.
even said the court case should not be.
No, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that.
Because we had
No. I'm coming to that. And I'm saying that the consequences of that is that everything that happens in Parliament, you see, this impression was being given that Parliament could do things without the executive. And I'm saying no. The law is founded on Parliament commentating on what the executive does. So if you don't recognize Mahama's presidency, everything that flows from him. And therefore the logic is to step out of the whole process, including stepping out of parliament because you don't even recognize, you are fighting EC as well. He's brought in another dimension which I want to bring because of this issue about not going to court. It wasn't just about inviting people to your home. There are 275 declared results at the constituency levels for both presidential and parliamentary. In 150 of these results, the MPP agents and the MPP representative, led by the former chairman, McMenu, signed in the strong room that these were correct and should be accepted. Signed onto the results. Before, if you know the way the strong room works, the results go there and you check and you sign onto it and Afroja endorses. In the other 125, 120 of those, the party's agents signed at the collating center as those results being clear. That was the basis of my saying that if we have contributed to our own defeat, people shouldn't come later and say, I didn't know what I was signing. It doesn't speak well of us. That was the basis of my challenge, of my misgivings about going to court.
But when you lost elections in Kumasi,
this is a message coming from Gabi Asare Ochre Dako.
And
he said,
my agent, my agents were prevented from there. Go and ask him. Go and ask him.
As for your agents, they were prevented.
No, they were prevented from going to the Congress.
And you allowed it.
Go and ask country
and you allowed it.
I protested vehemently. They were not even allowed in.
And do you know if the NDC agents protested?
Well,
you see, when you lost elections, you threatened to go to court.
I'm saying that you signed on to 271.
You appear to have settled it upon the points that he made. Now, Gabi Asare Chiridako says that I'm listening to the voices against MPP boycott of parliamentary vetting, and the difficulty is that they are arguing on logic. But the NPP action is not about what is logical, but what is political. The fact that the boycott is news drums home the political point that the NPP wants to push, that these are not really normal political times. The party is right to use all legitimate political means to deny the president residence within his zone of political comfort. That is the message people must understand. After all, we saw the kind of quality that was on display at the two vetting sittings. It's all good. All right, now let's hear Edu Asare. Yeah.
Thank you, Samson. I want Nana to tell Ghanaians of only three issues that the minority will want to participate in Parliament.
No, Jacob Bechebelamte has made it clear.
Jake, I can excuse or pardon Jake because he's not a member of Parliament. He has never been. And he may have written that letter oblivious of the
Jake should be writing from a point of information.
I'm telling you, it lacks it. The only issues they can, in this case, they can participate in Parliament. If you take our other paper, there are the prayers.
Jake has been a minister. Okay. He's been a chief of staff.
It doesn't matter.
He's been a chairman of the party.
No matter how long you become a minister.
Issues, clearly.
Parliamentary issues are different. I must be honest with you. I said they can participate in the prayers, correction of votes and proceedings. They can participate in correction of official report, and probably when someone makes a statement, they can contribute to it. Beyond this, I don't know. He should tell us. Because almost every other issue, after all of this, then you come to the day's business. And that is how, on the other paper, it is written. And the day's business has to do with laying of papers, in most cases by members, ministers, and all those other agents, ministries under government. So please, they should tell Ghana. I want him, and I want him to give us this answer. Please, you are the moderator, but I want these three issues so that Ghanaians will know exactly what they are paying the minority MPs for.
Okay,
it's very important. The other issue I want to, with regards to,
if you could respond to that briefly.
Let me finish.
That's a question to him.
Let me say this, and then he can quickly take over. Listen, they come with this argument that instead of going to the streets, they chose to go to court for me, I think this is purely, I don't know, an argument that is wobbly.
Why? It happens elsewhere in Africa.
No, please.
They hit the streets instead of going to court.
Samson, this is a party that has touted its credentials everywhere. That they are rule of law, good governance, and the only example they can give is about Rwanda. It's about what? Sierra Leone? Please, for me, it's this much of insensitivity to our own, you know, the sensibilities of God. It is a pure defeatist
okay.
posture.
So he's saying that provide 3 matters that you participate in Parliament, and when you are done, Chum, and I think he deserves it, he's asking for a quick rebuttal also. So do that.
Sorry. You make me laugh. Look, when I was mentioning the institutions that the NDC attacks on a regular basis, I forgot IDEC. I forgot Imani. I forgot CDD. I forgot IEA. I forgot Joy FM. Literally every major institution in this country.
Joy FM and give an apologize.
NDC has attacked them.
What issues will you participate in Parliament?
What the 3? The chairman's letter is so clear. He says that
everything
activities that we consider to be contributing to the formation of John Mahama's government, we will not lend support. We will take part in all legislative
3 examples.
All legislative functions except activities we consider.
All right, Chum.
Yeah, what I just want
you
to
have
add
seen 2 of them.
You have seen 2. You and I have
well, the swearing in is one. The vetting of ministers is another.
So
as we go along,
3 examples of what you will participate in.
You
and I are. You have generalized the issues.
He says everything.
I'm giving you 2
except what promotes
the vetting and the swearing in.
What promotes the constitution of his government.
Examples. I asked for examples.
As we go along, you will see.
No.
All right. Thank you, Nana.
Nana, you are in a position to tell Ghanaians the examples.
He's accusing me of mentioning the attacks on institutions. Indeed, when you asked me, I said, when you asked me, I said that, I'm saying that
you said it's a backing door.
Both parties, there's this culture of intolerance. And I was talking about democracy and sharing of ideas. Indeed, I want to let Nana know that even not all the leading members of the MPP support their court action. It's not only Dr. Rekubebe. Maybe the others are timid souls. You see, the others are timid souls and they cannot come out. He's a bold spirit and he's come out. You see, I heard one of their communications director also come out. What they are doing, like Gabi Ochidako send the test, is political. They are trying to, you know, keep the sentiment, support.
The NPP is a political party.
That's why I'm saying that they don't intend to have any good thing from the court. But all they are doing is that, oh, let us keep it in the minds of our people that, oh, we worked well, you know.
That is not fair because that's a serious party.
What I'm saying that initially, when Jake came out, Jake alleged systematic fraud. When they were going to court, did they put in the systematic fraud? Because they know that they cannot even prove it. So, in the press conferences, in all the noise that they made at Circle and all, they were talking about systematic fraud in their petition. Did they put in fraud? Okay. Because they knew they cannot, there was no fraud.
All right, now let me take this text. Fosu Jan, right? If the whole NDC decided to join President Mahama because they sponsored him, what makes it wrong for the NPP parliamentarians to support Nana in his case through boycott? The electoral challenge is a matter between Nanado as an individual, Dr. Bawumia, you should add that, and Jacobeche Bilamte, and the EC, President John Mahama, on the other hand. This has nothing to do with NPP as an entity, and therefore they cannot decide to boycott vetting of ministerial nominees. Well, they've done it. I think the NPP is right for boycotting the vetting process, and we, the youth, are solidly behind any decision they take. Kwabena Opoku writes from Kumasi, the NPP's boycott of the vetting committee is an indictment on their integrity. They will refer to John Mahama as president, awaiting the outcome of their petition, and yet would not let his appointees function, awaiting the court action. court decision. Are they going to allow their salaries to be deducted for work not done? Sorry, this is a disincentive to me as a taxpayer. You mean you as a taxpayer. Now, from Amo Samuel in Sunyani, if Dr. Rekubrobe was a true NPP founding father, then why did he form the UGM to contest the same elections that his NPP was also contesting? That's history, isn't it? The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook. I think the NPP must be careful in order not to fall prey to the legal pranks being played on them, being played by Chachuchi Kata and the NDC. This is Bruce. This is another one from Mr. Samuel Adoma Eduamwa in the UK. He writes, I find it difficult to understand why the NPP parliamentarians should accept victories, defeats, and even go to the extent of negotiating their salaries in parliament, yet they are accepting rent allowances to line their pockets, yet they said they don't recognize President Mahama as president, hence they cannot sit on the vetting committee. This clearly shows that these NPP MPs are nothing more than stomach politicians. Thank you very much. We will move on, Doc. If you take a rebuttal, I'm going to get that cycle, repeated. We've got an hour, and there are issues to look at. Let me give you a minute to say what you want to say briefly. Then we'll move
Very
on.
briefly, I think anybody who knows by history in the NPP will tell you that at many, many material times, I have expressed this very views which I've disagreed. The most famous was an article I wrote called Kyerematen. I'm sure Nana will remember. It is important in democratic parties to engender and encourage vigorous discussions of the issues that affect the party. And this whole notion of internalizing things is one way where, in my opening statement, I say even the communists have moved away from there. As for insults, you take them in your stride. They will come and go. But it's only those who don't have cogent rebuttals to what you say who will say that. You may say something about political parties. Reacting to Gabi, the object of a political party is to win elections. And if we said MPP had 50% or more
win elections and govern.
If MPP had 50% or more of the electorate supporting it, it got 50% of the vote, but the hardcore. So we must always have an eye to the next election. Will the actions that we are taking, will they bring us more of the independent voters or take some of those away? If we don't win power, as we did in 2000, which enabled the talents of my colleague here and others.
Why do you think the NPP executive is wrong? If they have done their research and come to the conclusion that they still have the support that you think they may lose. You are only one man.
I'm going to continue Gabi's thing as a political action. Political actions must have purposes of reinforcing your ability to win elections.
Well, they have calculated that, and they are sure that it doesn't affect their ability to win elections. 1422 is a text line. Send in your messages and also post them on our Facebook wall. Newsfile is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN Everywhere You Go and Bank of Africa. And like Rekubrobe said, he's a prolific writer. He's got time to write. Sometimes I wonder where he finds time to write. When I reported for the BBC and I wrote a story about Kwame Nkrumah's home, he gave me a rejoinder. I never forgot about that one. Now, we'll move on to the appointment so far. We have had the vetting processes that are going on. There have been questions about some of the positions, some of the ministries, and the manner in which they have been realigned or adjusted. There are questions about regional balance and all of that. I don't know. First of all, let me start with you, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe. You are one of those who think that the president is providing jobs for the boys by appointing these ministers, the so-called minister designate in the presidency. and giving them some job to do, and you say they are duplication of functions and all?
I'm glad you came to the point I'm trying to make. The president has got the authority, the right, the constitutional mandate to appoint ministers and to appoint as many as he feels or she feels will enable him or her to govern the country in an effective manner. That's a constitutional mandate. So I would not want to question numbers. But where I see, and the other point is that there are two issues. If you want to govern from the presidency, fine, then don't appoint sector ministries to head the ministries. The Constitution also says that there must be a cabinet, the president must be assisted by a cabinet of 19 people. So far, I think there are 40 ministers or so. We don't know. No, maximum of 19. Yes, but 19 is the top end. We are now 40 and rising. There's also something about where the ministers in total should come from. At least 2/3 should be members of parliament, etc. Pardon?
Half.
I think half, whatever it is. So within those constraints, he can do what he wants. However, where I think appointments clearly suggest that you are building trouble for yourself, and you haven't explained, for example, why you need 3 wise men to go and build schools and build universities and build whatever, when we have ministries.
You're talking about Cletus Avoka, Alban Bagbeng, and E.T. Mensah.
I won't mention names.
These projects, the president has designated them as priority programs.
Can I make my point? We have ministries of education, works and housing, etc., which have traditionally handled these functions. How do you relay these people to those functions? You have a deputy minister of finance who is now the appointed minister of finance in the presidency to do a job, I don't know, a job that I think the director of budget or the chief director, etc., could have done.
No, he's supposed to be in charge. Fifi Kwete is supposed to be in charge of financial institutions.
But what is the minister of finance supposed to do? You know, I think we need clarity. As for who the president appoints, it's up to him. But where clearly there's a lack of clarity between designated positions.
You are not accepting it, or that you need clarity. You've been told that his job is to superintend over financial institutions,
which has traditionally been done by the Minister of Finance. All right?
Yes.
Why the change? You don't think we deserve to? You know, I started by saying that he can appoint whoever he wants, but clearly, where you are moving away from the sector. You know, the Minister of Finance.
The president wants to have
Can I finish? The Minister of Finance has got supervising authority over the governor of bank and those institutions. Well, can you see conflicts coming? The law, the relationship between the Minister of Finance and the governor and financial institutions are very clear. Are we going to change all the laws? I'm just saying that there must be clarity. There must not be, and if you sit next to the president in the castle, you know, if there's a problem, it's a personality clash between two people who had worked previously together, well, find them and let them do something else. It is important that the president gets people as many as he wants. I won't argue about numbers. Every government has had too many numbers. But I'm just saying that it is looking like jobs for the boys. And maybe there's a pressure to find, instead of retiring certain people, we must find them jobs. That's all I'm commenting about.
Let me hear from Nana too.
Oh.
Especially the talk about regional balance.
Well, some of the appointments have been very strange. And I know that there's a lot of confusion and disagreement within the NDC over these appointments. The NDC papers themselves have written about this tension and disagreements in the NDC papers themselves. So obviously they haven't been satisfactory. Some of the appointments are where Dr. Rekubobi has mentioned some of them. You have 6 ministers at the presidency. 6 ministers. If the cabinet itself should be about 19.
That designation is not new to you, is it?
Yeah, but the number.
How many did we have in the NPP era? Minister of State at the presidency.
Oh, I don't think they were more than 3. But you see, we should move forward. If you are not careful, the council will become a dumping ground for anybody who they can't find any proper job for. Because like Dr. Brekubobe said, all those functions are properly situated within proper sector ministries. And you see, the seriousness of
your
this
critics
matter,
will say you can't make that argument you just made because, for example, Dr. Anthony Akotose was Minister of State at the Presidency before.
No, he was the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance.
At the Ministry of
so
Finance.
he's situated properly within a sector ministry. But you see, for me, the Presidency has certain functions. There are certain organizations that have been placed directly under the Presidency, like AIDS Commission, like scholarships, and so on. You can have a Minister for Presidential Affairs with maybe 1 or 2 deputies. It's tidier. And then we know that all of these
Presidential
activities.
affairs.
Yeah.
Then what does the Chief of Staff, what does he do?
But the Chief of Staff is still there. You still have 6 presidency ministers at the Presidency. I'm saying for those 6 ministers at the Presidency, it's tidier. Because we're also talking about the use of public funds. All these people are going to be paid with public funds. Something about efficiency, something about the proper use of our resources. If you have 1 minister for presidential affairs with 1 deputy or 2 deputies, then all those subjects that come directly under the president can be handled. But now you have a minister for scholarships. Then you have a minister for AIDS Commission. Then you have a minister for financial institutions. What is that? And you have sector ministers. And you see this business about, now you have people, they say they are coordinators. People say they are wise men. But they say the official designation is coordinators. They are going to coordinate the building of schools, hospitals, and so on.
Airports.
You know, airports. You know,
Priority promises, election promises.
But this whole business about building airports and so on, these are huge infrastructure projects. You need an infrastructure to manage the processes, the procurement, the bidding, everything. The sector ministries have that infrastructure. They have a chief director, they have directors for various finance, administration, everything. And with line managers, line directors under them. The procurement of how many? 200 secondary schools. The work that is involved. You say 3 people. Are you now going to appoint a whole public service infrastructure to service them? When the Ministry of Works and Housing has that infrastructure in place, when the Ministry of Education has that infrastructure in place, it's difficult to understand.
But is that not why their designation is coordination?
So what is
so they coordinate, as if it has to do with the Education Ministry, they simply coordinate with the minister.
They coordinate
and
with the
keep
minister.
the president, informed.
The better way, because we're talking about governance here, those ministers who will be directly responsible for these activities, education, health, transport, whichever, put them together as a coordinating team. But now you have coordinators. What will be their status in relation to the ministers? Look, the confusion will start pretty soon. And it's difficult to understand the thinking that is coming behind this. The other thing is the numbers. You know, when the NDC came into power in 2000, one of the big cases they made was that Kufuor's government was big. And they were going to have a lean government, an efficient government. Kufuor had 82 ministers when he was leaving. When the NDC was leaving power on the 6th of January, they had 82 ministers. But they made so much noise about a lean, efficient government, and they had exactly the same number of ministers that Kufuor had. Now you have all of these wise men. Obviously, they will have ministerial status. And then you have all these people at the presidency. And when you are at the presidency, you are a minister. You know, you have an office, one single room office. Your secretary is about 50 meters away. You know, very soon they will find something for my brother Kojo Asari here. They put him there as minister for sanitation in Accra. You know, so it's making the governance matter a little difficult. You see, and I don't know, and it's creating major confusion inside the NDC itself. There were destruction of properties of NDC in Tamale, for example, because there's so much confusion.
Mr. Edo Asari, we got the indication that there was going to be the slimmest government ever.
By who said that?
By papers that have a certain orientation towards the NDC?
I think those who own the papers don't appoint. So I would have loved to hear from the president himself. Then I can say it is authentic. But having said that, I think so far the few names that have come up, the challenges that have come have got to do with the 6 ministers of state. And the drift here, or the change this time, has to do with the designations, because usually they appoint these ministers without portfolio. So it is the president who decides which area they can function, and then they put them there. And I think we have moved one notch forward by giving them at least some jurisdiction within which to operate.
The criticism is that 6 too many.
Well, it depends on the outlook of the president, what he intends to achieve with the numbers. For me, I think in this country, we criticize almost everything. You know, the size of bread and all of that, kinky and everything, we criticize, and then we are buying it.
That's why we are a democracy.
That's fine. I mean, it's good to discuss issues and all of that, but I think the most important thing is what the vision of the president, what the president wants to achieve with all of these numbers. So let's all wait and see what will come of it. Then we can have that grounds to criticize in real terms. Otherwise, it's like the whole thing hasn't even started, and yet we are bastardizing it for the sake of it. I believe that whatever designations that have been assigned these 6 people is a move, one step from where you are there as a minister without portfolio. And, you know, I have been in Parliament, and I've seen some members of Parliament who were ministers of state and all of that. And sometimes you want to know exactly the role they are playing and all of that and so on. So I think this rather gives direction.
But when you give them roles that are already being performed by people that we pay them to perform those functions.
We are talking about priority areas. What the president considers.
There's a minister of state in charge of PPP, public-private partnership.
Yes.
There's a specific office at the finance ministry for that job. It's being headed by someone.
You see, that man you are talking about, that woman, may be reporting directly to somebody who is a minister. You are talking about the presidency. We are talking about the priority of what the president considers to be.
So he reports to the minister. The minister will report to the president.
No worries. But the thing is, you want to see, you have an outlook. You want to see something done within a certain period.
So the minister for scholarships, that's the major priority?
You think scholarships are not priority? Tell me.
I'm asking you.
No, you tell me.
They've always been
there.
there.
No, you say it. If it's been there, how has it been managed?
And the minister for AIDS?
No, you are not going to interrogate me this morning.
No, we are trying to.
No, let me make my point.
So that's one. There is also the minister in charge of financial institutions and the talk about the possible
I want
conflict.
to agree with Dr. Rekubrubi that there must be some clarity. I want to agree with him.
But I thought you knew.
No, please. You won't know everything. But of course, what it is I know what the outlook or why this was arrived at. But of course,
so you know.
Oh, please.
So tell us.
Nana, stop this.
Tell us to say I should stop this. You say you know how it was arrived at. We're asking for clarity.
He says he doesn't know exactly, and that's why he also wants the picture to be made clearer.
Which is what?
Nana, stop this one.
No, which is what?
You see, Nana again tried to paint a picture of numbers. Okay, numbers. Well, you see, the NPP, I'll come to conclude, but the NPP, you know, they preach virtue, and yet when it gets to their turn, they practice vice. They had how many spokespersons for the ministries? Count them in addition to the, you said 82. If you add all the spokespersons you had for all the ministries, and check how many, you had some for infrastructure, some for...
we are talking of ministers.
No, we didn't go that time.
We're talking of ministers.
No, I'm not sure.
No, we are talking of ministers.
No, please. You see, let me make this point. That when you try to make this look like you are a better alternative, you are not. NPP, you are not. Let the CPPs and other, they have moral authority to deal with some of these cases. You don't. You are bad in this light. So don't even try to.
Because we are spokesmen.
How many? Count them in addition, because they were doing virtually everything for special assistant. Let me say so. They were considered special assistants, and some of them had, or most of them, were using official vehicles at the ministry. So what are you saying?
What is this point? Even
what is this point? No, I just want to.
You're saying that they did something you find wrong.
Yes, he's sitting here.
You do it. It is
creating
okay.
the impression.
You do it.
What
it is
what
okay.
did we do wrong? Tell us.
The Ghanaian taxpayer should pay double for one job.
Double.
You're getting two people having to do the same thing.
Why? How do you want to?
Or three people having to do the same thing.
Deputy ministers, would they appoint special assistants?
No, we won't appoint special assistants.
You did in the last government.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
you had them.
We didn't.
Your memory is short.
Who? No, you tell me. Special assistants. Who? Mention one name for me.
Special assistant,
who?
no special assistant.
Tell me one name that you know who was a special assistant.
Who was Standogbe?
He was a presidential staffer at the.
How many were they?
Oh, that is not the question. You asked a specific question. I'm answering that
you are
question.
talking of assistants.
No, please.
Staffers.
They were working at the presidency. If you check the list of staffers of the office of the president, which was brought to parliament, Standogbe's name was part of it. So he wasn't anybody's special assistant. And that is the point we are making. You had, that is it.
You know
Doctor,
what you're saying is not true.
Please.
But you still say
no, you tell me what you know. Tell us.
So how many staffers did you have?
I think you should continue and finish your point. Don't respond to
all right. So all I'm saying is that
don't respond to it.
How many staffers did you have?
What I'm saying is that the president knows exactly what he's up to.
But you don't know.
Nana, when it gets to your turn, you know I can do this better.
Oh, we're
Please stop it.
if you ask me issues, I'll deal with it.
Okay,
let me complete.
Can I bring in
finish?
Chum because it's yet to
you see, Nana can't stand the
I'll
heat.
take a break.
That's how come he is always on my case. Listen, the important thing for me is the outlook in this next 4 years, what the president seeks to achieve, what the NDC as a party, in what we've put in our manifesto, the priority areas, and who can do the competence of all of these people. I thought that we will scrutinize the names that have been mentioned. Okay. Then we see what competence they are bringing on board,
there are critics
rather
who
than
say,
the peripheral.
There are critics who say that the president started very well, then got to a point and has given an indication or an impression that he's not actually as independent as he wanted people to think of him from the start, because from the very start, he started his appointment. There are people he's disappointed, and the public felt that, look, he was in charge doing his own thing. Now, the appointment of the three gentlemen, the criticism is that these are old guards, and he can't do away with them. He can't find a ministry for them. He must give them something to do. And he's doing so for fear of what might come upon him if he does away with them.
I'd like to start by saying that I feel, I feel with him in that maybe Nana Kumia is even backing down on their stance of boycott, because he's making some good points here. And this is what we actually want the MPP to come on board for us to, make our democratic dispensation.
I didn't know my points are so valuable to you.
You see, we like this because...
They say you are going to have minister for mosquitoes.
Oh, you see,
because
this democracy.
That is a major priority. It's a major priority to the ordinary Ghanaian. Mosquitoes.
You should go on and make your point.
I'm going to make the point.
You may not know that it's deliberate to stop you from making one point.
No. What I'm saying is that it's good for us to, discuss issues dispassionately, so that the Ghanaian public will benefit from the government. Now, we're talking about appointments. The president, in his own wisdom, is doing the appointment. He's not under any pressure, you can clearly see. It's not that he's appointed some 3 old guards and therefore he's coming under pressure. No. In the NDC, you have the men, you have the boys. The impression
is that these are guards who are untouchable.
In the NDC, we have
and
the
even
men.
The president cannot touch them.
In the NDC, we have the men, we have the boys, we have the children. It's a generational thing. You understand it? It's knowledge management. You don't just jump and then throw out people. No. what the presidency is doing is all about policy and delivery. He has a clear direction of policy and what he has to do so that to make the policies come to fruition. Under the Mills government, there were setbacks. There were promises that Mills made that maybe for one or two reasons that the president has now, seen that, oh, there was this gap. That is why we couldn't achieve this or that. And we came under pressure during the elections that you promised that, you didn't give it to us. You promised that. And the 2012 elections were full of some serious promises, both from the NDC and the NPP. And these are the promises that will be talked about in 2016.
Schools over the years have been built by the Education Service, the Education Ministry, under the supervision of the Education Ministry. Why is it that now we are looking at some people to assist that process? What will the Education Ministry be doing? I believe that
we have all these supervising institutions there, yet we have such roads, such bad construction, going on in the country. So there is nothing wrong if the president finds it in his own wisdom to appoint people
the Education Minister, the Deputy Education Minister, the directors at that ministry, the staff at that, what will they be doing?
You see, what we have to be careful about is that we've just been told about the bold job description, the bold designation. We've not been told about their job description. And you and I know that for every particular job, there comes a job description. So the policy analysts, the presidential assistants, the advisors, they are going to look at all these portfolios and then juxtapose that with what is happening at the ministry. Because it's just like lawmaking. If you are coming out with a new law, you look at the present situation. What is lacking? Why is the present law not doing what it's supposed to do? And then based upon that, you come up with amendments or you come up with new law. So I believe that the president has seen something wrong somewhere that we are not privy to. But in his wisdom and by the advisors who are helping him put up this government, they've seen that, look, if you put in place...
He doesn't even believe that the people he's appointing are competent enough to deliver.
As for competency, you and I know that clearly you said people...
He said he's seen some problems, some difficulties somewhere, and that's why he's bringing in this.
I'm saying that he's been advised that, oh, previously we had this problem. I cannot tell. Therefore, we need to put this person here, or we need to put that person here, or we need to plug this hole. You understand it? So the appointments are not just something coming off the head of the president. It is coming as a way of some studies that have gone into the previous maybe government and the gaps that they have to fill to make sure that all the promises that is made to the Ghanaian public or the Ghanaian will be fulfilled before his 2016 mandate ends.
We are taking a quick break. When we return, we'll find out if Alan Kyerematen is running away from the flag bearership of the NPP and Kofi Adams disqualified. Victimization us on your Joy News channel on multi-TV and also listening via radio, Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen of affiliate stations across the country. I've got some of your text messages here. And this one from Larry. He says, please tell Nana Komia, Kofor appointed a minister for aviation when the Ghana Airways had collapsed. He had minister for railways when there was no train on the rail lines. Akoto says role at the finance ministry was not clear either. And then Charles in Accra writes, apart from the ministers of state at the presidency, the NPP also had special assistants at all ministries. Collins Penkwasi in Siane writes, how many ministers have been appointed from the Bronga Ahafo region? The next election is just at the corner. Oh, that's about 3.5 years away. Why is Eduasari trying hard to create the impression that the president consulted him in making his appointment? Why try to defend something that you have no clue about. Musa sent in that one. And a very final text from Benisco in Akpokofi. He writes, it is the NPP that started this job for the boys thing, so they should stop complaining. Thank you for your messages. And you certainly must have followed the news about posters of Alan Kojo Kyerematen, and he has come out to say he's very busy looking for a job at the international level. He's not put up any posters or asked anybody put up posters for his bid for the MPP flag bearership the third time in 2016. Also, aide to former President Rawlings, Kofi Adams, he's been disqualified from contesting the Boem constituency, the constituency that the voter regional minister was MP for, was elected to be MP for, and he unfortunately passed. And I'll want to start with you, Edwasare, on this point. And I did my introduction by saying it is only in the NDC. Okay, I'll do with you first, Chum. It is only in the NDC that you hold meetings to decide who is a member, even when the person had been your deputy general secretary for a number of years. What is going on?
You see, I think we need to clarify issues here. Kofi Adams had a problem. It's quite unfortunate. I must say that it's quite unfortunate that this is happening to a person like Kofi Adams, who has been with the party all this while. You see, there was a problem. There was an allegation that he was working towards the defeat of the NDC. And maybe...
Of President Mills, specific.
Of President Mills, yeah, specific. Maybe now...
that matter was supposed to be investigated.
Yes, it
to
was.
determine who was the voice.
I am coming to
that
it.
That has not been done.
Yes, I'm coming to it. You see, Kofi Adams was brought before the NEC, you see, of the NDC.
National Executive Committee.
National Executive Committee. And then the National Executive Committee, relayed the matter to the disciplinary committee to determine the matter.
He was suspended.
He was suspended. Indeed, I think I heard on air that his deputy secretary position was the one that was suspended. But we've also heard from the general secretary, who issued the letter, that his membership was suspended.
In the NDC constitution, do you have anything such as a suspension of your membership?
You see, when
if you can speak directly to it, I'll be very grateful, because
I'm speaking directly to the issue.
From the little that I know about your constitution, you have no such thing like suspension of the member.
Now, you remember that when President Mahama was picked by the the NEC to be the sole contestant for the presidential slot, they came out to say that the NEC, by I think Article 54 or so, can do whatever the Constitution does not provide. You understand it? Now, they took Kofi Adams' matter to the disciplinary committee.
You can do it. You can do it, but you do that pursuant to promulgating regulations.
Maybe you will let me finish so that you understand what is happening. Now, Kofi Adams indicates he wants to contest the seat. The matter is brought before the NEC. Kofi Adams went to court somewhere along the line. There was some court action about the suspension. What the NEC said was that the matter is before a disciplinary body. So we need a report from the disciplinary body to enable us determine whether or not we can.
How long has the matter been before the disciplinary body?
Well, I cannot tell the number of months or days that the matter has been before.
But we know when the matter came up and when it was referred.
But what the NEC was saying was that it is very important that due process or due procedure is followed. So Kofi Adams will quickly move to the disciplinary body. If he's cleared, then the NEC can go ahead also to clear him to contest the seat. You get it? So I think that when we are looking at procedure, we see this matter is not a personal matter between Asiedu Nketia and Kofi Adams.
So the disciplinary body should call an emergency meeting now and declare what position they have taken
and then
on him.
send a report quickly to the NEC so that the NEC can quickly, you know,
it's been over 6 months since he was suspended. In your party's constitution, when you are suspended and 6 months elapses, what happens?
I have no idea. I have not averted my mind to that particular issue that you are asking. But
does the person not return? Does the person suspended not return to his original position if you have not renewed it?
You see,
is that not your constitution?
You are before a disciplinary body. The disciplinary body is supposed to pronounce some kind of judgment.
You have suspended the person. Your constitution provides rules regarding suspension.
You remember that there were court issues that delayed the processes. You see, so we have to look at all these things holistically. And then now,
the court issues change your constitutional position. Is that what you're saying?
No, there is a case before a disciplinary body.
Do you sincerely think it is fair? It is fair to deal with him the manner in which he's being dealt with now?
I am not here to say whether or not it is fair.
No, you
or
have an opinion.
Unfair.
You have an opinion.
No, what I'm saying is that procedure, it's a party, and there's a process. You see, so it will be very difficult for me to say that it is fair or it is not fair. But if the procedure is that...
Imagine you were in his position and you were the one being dealt with in that manner.
I think that we will let the procedure prevail, because we should not look at issues when it comes to Chumbarema or when it comes to Nanasari or when it comes... Nobody is against another when it comes to these issues.
That's not what I'm asking.
We don't look at the discipline.
I'm asking, put yourself in Kofi Adams' position, that you have been suspended. Your constitution says after 6 months, if it is not renewed, you revert to your normal position.
Then
is that
I would then ask
6 months have elapsed.
Does Kofi Adams...
Investigations that were supposed to be conducted to determine if it were your voice on that tape have not been done. You went to court. You were even persuaded. You take the matter out of court. You go to contest a constituency, and you are being told that your membership has to be determined. And
what I'm saying is that, does Kofi Adams recognize that he has a case before a disciplinary body, which must be determined? If he does not recognize so,
all right,
then we can talk about fairness or unfairness. But if he recognizes that, yes, he has a case before a disciplinary body, you know, the outcome of the decision of the disciplinary body is very, very relevant upon your party status. Because if the disciplinary committee comes out and says that, okay, this is the position that they have taken, that the NEC should pronounce upon you.
Okay.
At the time that we have filed you as our
Thank you.
nominee.
Let me quickly go onto the phone lines and speak to Dr. Sule Garaba of the Presidency. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sadem, and it's my pleasure to be with you and your listeners.
All right, you're talking to Samson. Sadem is the executive producer of the show.
Oh, hi.
Anyway,
Samson.
just go ahead.
Apologies.
Let's tell us, you want to bring some clarity to the questions that my panelists are asking. Some of my panelists are asking about the designation of the ministers at the Presidency.
Yes, indeed. And thank you very much for the opportunity to clarify this issue. You know, during the campaign and with the remainder of his term, President Mahama made a clear commitment to improve governance and to ensure that there is direct accountability to Parliament. And what he instructed in the formulation of the Ministers of State is to ensure that each Minister of State designate is responsible for a cluster of institutions. Of an assumption of office, we did an analysis and discovered 51 separate institutions that are under what is called Office of Government Machinery. It is the Office of the President that bears ultimate responsibility for these 51 institutions. They range from, you know, special focus on the public sector reform, the intention to bring the private sector development under the direct jurisdiction of the President. Development authorities exist. MEDA, the Millennium Development Authority, which disbursed over $540 million in the last 4 years, is under the President. The Savannah Accelerated Development Authority is under the President. All of these institutions, as it stands now, do not have a ministry. under which they are coordinated and through which they respond to Parliament. So the designation of these 6 ministers of state, most of them members of Parliament, is actually to give much more transparency in the transactions of these 51 institutions. And as you would see, they have been clustered into 6 different categories, and each of them is being headed by a minister of state. For example, Honorable Fifi Kwete.
Great.
There are a number of financial-related institutions that operate directly under the presidency. Mass law, the pension fund. All these are institutions that Parliament would like to get a clear understanding of what they're doing, and the presidency itself will want to feel safe by having a designated minister.
Before this appointment, who was responsible for that particular job that's now being given to Fifi Kwete?
As a matter of fact, that's a very good question. Before these appointments, there were, in the previous administration, there were 6 ministers of state in the office of the president. Under the Kufuor administration, there were 7 ministers of state. So this practice is a common practice. The novelty this time is that we wanted to be transparent about exactly what they're doing, what they will be doing in the office of the president. In the past, they were assigned to the office of the president, and usually after 3 or 4 months, when they figure out how the office works, then they're designated momentarily to different sectors. So the reality for that most Ghanaians need to know is that the practice of ministers of state has always existed. The difference that President Mahama brings is to specifically designate them.
And you don't agree,
what they will be doing.
You don't agree that this is duplicity of functions?
This is strictly what?
Duplicity of functions.
No, it cannot be duplicity.
Because the question is also being asked, for example, that the minister who's been designated to superintend PPP, that is a specific office in the finance ministry headed by an individual.
Yes, actually what it is PPP and private sector development. It was just too long. Now, for private sector development, as you know, there used to be a ministry under President Kufuor called the Ministry of Private Sector Development. That ministry was then merged into the Ministry of Trade and Industry. But the president has made consistent commitment from his policy announcement in September last year to his focus throughout the campaign and since being sworn in, that he is going to champion private sector development interests directly from his office. And as we speak, the president himself is the chairman of the Private Sector Advisory Council. Now, with such a high status given to private sector, it would be a shame if there was nobody providing anchor and leadership to advance private sector development. And on the question of duplicity, let us be reminded of the fact that the 51 institutions that are currently operating under the Office of Government Machinery do not have ministries responsible for them. Okay? So there's all ministries, departments, and agencies have their jurisdictions cut out and ministers designated. These 51 are directly under the office of the president.
All right.
So when I was coordinating SADA, every time there was an issue to go to Parliament, we had to go and rely on a minister of state. Now, a minister of state has been designated to be the official link between the presidency and Parliament for these 51 separate institutions. And there's no duplication whatsoever.
What's your answer also, explanation for Alban Bagbein, Cletus Avoka, and E.T. Mensah to coordinate priority projects like airports, school buildings, and the rest? What are they? What is the job of the ministers of the respective ministries that are supposed to have, had done these jobs?
Okay, thank you very much. As I've explained severally, every time a political party or a president makes promises of major initiatives, there is always a danger of the overload of existing ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, let me come to the 3 specific ones. There is a pillar of President Mahama's agenda which focuses on improving access and quality of education through expansion of senior secondary schools. 200 of them to be done in 4 years. The mechanism through which that is done traditionally will be through the Ministry of Education. However, if you look closely, there are at least 6 or 7 different institutions that make a contribution for this to happen. It is our estimation that as we speak, the Ministry of Education has a number of pipeline projects, improving schools under trees and all of that, that's going on. In order to ensure that this promise is delivered, a coordinator is invited to maintain a single purpose objective of bringing together all the different institutions, but most definitely in active collaboration with the Ministry of Education. Because in the final analysis, when those 200 schools are built, they are going to go back, they are going to be managed by the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service. And it is traditionally the case that you bring in a single purpose individual who will coordinate the delivery of the promise. But the routine function of putting teachers in the schools...
I'll take ask a very final question of you.
Okay, sir.
And
okay.
I am aware of a certain World Bank research that suggested that we need to professionalize the presidency. If you are putting in a lot more of politicians at the presidency, we won't get there, will we?
We're doing both. Thank you very much. That's a very crucial question. In fact, the reason we are unearthing these issues for which people are designated is because in the last 3-4 weeks, in the effort to professionalize the presidency, we've been identifying key aspects which need to be improved upon. But you can also admit, my brother, that professionalizing the presidency does not just mean bringing PhDs on board. There has to be political oversight.
All right.
Citizens of this country must be accountable to some political authorities who in turn are accountable to Parliament.
All right, Doc,
so
sorry, but...
the institutions that these people are coming to preside over are professional, but we need to have them accountable to Parliament.
Sorry, but we ran out of time. Dr. Sule Garba is the Senior Policy Advisor to the President. Thank you very much.
Let me just...
No, we're very limited time.
Yeah,
let's move on. Let's move on. Nana, yes.
We are here to do a panel program.
The Procurement Authority, they have never submitted a report to Parliament as required by the laws. It is not because they are not under a ministry. It is just a certain mindset that allows this to happen. The solution is not to appoint a minister for procurement. The man who is speaking, the gentleman, Mr.
Dr. Sule Garba.
Sule Garba, yeah.
Coordinator for SADA.
Senior Policy Advisor.
He used to be coordinator for SADA. SADA, Savannah, something development. My brother, when there's a regular activity, say housing, in the northern region, they say it's SADA. When there's a project, a regular project, that water, they say it's SADA. There was nothing additional about it. There was no value addition.
There was a clear SADA program.
When there was World Bank housing project that were being done across the country, the portion that were being done in the north, they say it's SADA.
We have to ask when the SADA comes into being, when they get the first funding.
Because of the constraints, because of the constraints of time. Because of the constraints of time, Nana, can we speak to the Allen posters? You are in a better position to speak to that matter briefly for us.
My conclusion on this matter is that because the president makes a promise, doesn't call for a new ministry. Now, Allen, the posters have appeared. I haven't seen them, but it's been reported. I have said that I don't believe that Alan Kyerematen would be behind those posters. It is not in his own interest. The NPP from March or so is going to go through polling station election. That would then lead to constituency. That would then lead to region. That would then lead to national elections. It is after the national elections that the date will be set for the presidential. So why would Alan Kyerematen be publishing? Why would Alan Kyerematen be publishing posters about presidential? It will give the impression that he is so power hungry and to go against him. He will not do that. As we speak, the man is in pole position to secure the Director Generalship of the World Trade Organization. It can even be used against him by his opponents. That look, this man who is contesting for this position is also looking at the flag bearership of his country. Alan Kyerematen will not do that, and I'm happy that he has caused a statement to be written disassociating himself from it.
Doc, some suggest that he's chickening out of the game. What is he afraid of? Because he's interested. His interest is known.
Alan Kyerematen's issue is irrelevant, quite frankly, at this time. You know,
the posters are all over the country.
But that doesn't mean, as I said, you know, in the interval, some people are jockeying to get President Mahama's eye for doing security diabolics. And they are behind all of this, you know, to see how, why not? We can always speculate and see this. It will be absolutely inconceivable and indeed out of character for a person who ascribes to one of the leading positions, international positions, is supported by the AU, is supported by the ACP, as Nana says, is in pole position to lend himself to any such thing. So I think we should just dismiss it. What I wanted to comment, one line I'll make on Sule's submission, is that every minister, the president is the executive authority of Ghana. Sector ministries are not cut in stone. He can reorganize sector ministries in any shape of way he wants. So this idea that Office of Government Machinery, you know, somebody decided to organize it that way. It is not cast in stone. They can reorganize the whole of the sectors. That's the prerogative of every president. So you don't need to say that there are 50 institutions.
Okay.
Therefore, I shall appoint
let me take a minute's comment from you, Edward. Yeah, you could also comment on the Kofi Adams issue as well.
Dr. Reku Brobe vehemently, because if that power resides in the president, then you cannot limit him from making this appointment this way. So that dynamism rests with him. Number two, about Alan. You see, I like the way the MPP people are handling this matter. They are being very subtle about it and all of that. But the truth and the fact remains.
Oh, you know the truth about this one?
Okay, the fact remains that... No, I wanted to use fact, not the truth. The fact remains that, you know, the NPP doesn't want to accept certain things. When we live here, these discussions go on. There is that... some kind of arrangement, okay, which seeks to push Alan to the fore. And again, Nanado's... To some people in the MPP want to do that. Others too want to keep Nanado, in the political forefront, so that he will. For which reason this case even went to court.
All right.
So that he keeps himself.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but we have run out of time. We have run out of time. Sorry, but we have run out of time. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. We are done. Sorry, gentlemen, we are done. And this is where we end it. My guests who have been here to do the discussions, Dr. Charles Reku Brobe, Victor Usu's nephew. He's a founding member of the NPP. Edu Asari. He is a former MP for Adenta for the NDC. Chum Berima. He is an engineer and also a legal practitioner. Nana Akomia is the NPP's communications director for 2012. My name is Samson Ladi Anyanini. This show has been produced under the leadership of Sedem Ofori and all the directions going on from Yaya John Apia as well. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. The news is up next.